There you
You get to sit here, Jen.
go. Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, February 2nd, 2026. We will be going into executive session in accordance with the motion that's going to be made shortly, and we will not return to executive session prior to 6:30 PM into open session.
Mr. Chair, I move we go into executive session 4A pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Fire Chief David LeBlanc. B, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. HEA, Harwich Employees Association. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the HEA, Harwich Employees Association, and litigation with the HEA DLR case number MUP-24-10888, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. And D, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, interim town administrator.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to go in for an executive session for the aforementioned reasons. In favor, Pete? Aye. Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. We'll return no sooner than 6:30. Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting back to order in public session. Previously, we went into executive session to discuss a number of issues which are still pending, so we can't discuss them, but I can discuss the fact that the board voted to designate Chief Kevin Considine as the interim town administrator commencing at the end of the day on Friday. So with that, I'd like you to join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I see we've all survived the apocalypse. And as Tony calls it, the non-nor'easter. All right, so staff comments and announcements.
Good evening, Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk. Very excited to share that our office is launching our first ever I Voted sticker design contest. So I'm sure everyone in this room is familiar with the I Voted stickers that you get after you cast your ballot on Election Day. So we're going to spruce them up a little bit this year, and we're going to let our young Harwich artists age 5 to 18 submit their own original designs. So the contest is live. It's sort of in two parts. There's the design window to kick us off, and then a voting period to select our winners. So the design period will run throughout the month of February, so launch today, and we'll go through the last Friday in February, which is the 27th. A variety of places and opportunities for our young people to participate. So I'm very thankful for the collaboration for other departments in town. With their support, we will have standing design locations at Brooks Free Library, the 204 Cultural Center, and at the Alborough House in the Youth Services waiting area. So anytime those buildings are open, our kids can go and submit their designs. We'll have the entry forms and art supplies available in those spaces throughout the month. And then the community center is also hosting a dedicated design event. So that will be on February 18th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the community center. Designated time and space, again, for our young people during that vacation week, that is February vacation, to go in on their own or with their families, depending on their ages, to go in and make their designs. We do have an official design entry form. So we are asking kids to submit their design using this form. This is what we'll be able to submit to the vendors to actually have them printed. So the front page has the design portion, so the kids will make their design right in that circle. There is a consent portion, so if the entrant is ages 5 to 17, their parent or legal guardian will sign. If they're 18, they're welcome to sign that consent form on their own. We have the requirements and contest details on the back, so folks will have that handy. Also available on our website, we have a tab dedicated to the contest, and we put out an alert on the homepage of the website today. So we're going to divide the submissions into 4 age categories: 5 to 8, 9 to 12, 13 to 15, and 16 to 18. So we're going to tag in town staff to help us narrow down our total pool of submissions to 3 finalists per age category, so 12 designs total. And then I mentioned the second phase of this overall contest is the voting period. So we are going to have a public voting period for Harwich residents to vote and choose the winning designs in each age category. We will have an online voting option, certainly for convenience, but we will have printed paper ballots and the option for kids and adults to come in and cast their vote in person. Unlike our official, local, state, and federal elections, this will not be restricted to folks age 18 and older, so we do hope young people in the community will take the chance to come out and maybe cast their first ballot to help us select our winners. So that part will run through the month of March. We're going to tally our ballots after polls close on March 31st, and we will plan to announce our 4 winners, so 1 per each age category, on April 6th. And then we will have the winning designs printed in time for our annual town election on May 19th. So kids can come in with their families on election day and see their hard-fought, hard-won designs in action being handed out to our voters. So we're very excited. All those details are on the website. I did bring extra design forms in case anyone here has kids with you or at home who would like to participate. And if folks have questions, they're welcome to contact us in the town clerk's office.
Mr. Chair, before she sits down, but I know you wanted to say something first?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Emily, and I will not have my 7-year-old participate, because if he doesn't win, he'll blow this whole place up. So,
Fair enough.
I know his limits. He doesn't. I would like you to, if you would, just reiterate the date for citizens petitions to be turned in.
Sure.
The absolute drop dead date. I had a couple phone calls on that today, and if we could just make sure it's clear to the public, that would be great.
Sure. So per the town charter, the deadline for citizen-initiated petitions is always the 2nd Friday in February at noon. So for 2026, that's Friday, February 13th at 12 p.m. Petitions should be filed with the select board, so they'll bring them to the town's administration office prior to or by that 12 p.m. February 13th deadline. They then get transmitted to us in the town clerk's office for signature certification, and assuming we're able to certify the requisite number of signatures, which is 10 for an annual town meeting, then those articles will appear on the 2026 annual town meeting warrant.
Thank you so much.
So Friday the 13th.
Friday the
Just repeat
13th,
that.
yes, don't read too much into it.
And one other thing to build on what Jeff just said, just so everybody's clear. You really need to really be committed to whatever petition article you are putting in there, because even if you're the petitioner and come back later and say, give me that back, I don't want to do it anymore, what's your answer?
Yes, so that is a very good point. I'm glad you brought it up, Don. Anytime a petition is filed, once it is filed, it cannot be amended in any way, and that can't be to correct a typo or spacing, change the content, change the estimated dollar amount, add a title. Whatever is filed is what will appear on the warrant, kind of no matter what. So once you pass it off to the town, that is what will appear on the warrant.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Alrighty, any more staff? Carolyn, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Hello, everyone. It's February, which means that the community center on February 5th turns 26 years old. So we're excited, and we will be celebrating all February. We will start with the Shred event. This is backed by popular demand. We have shredding bins that they are locked, and they do get certified that everything was shredded, but it is just for the general public if you would like to bring in anything you need shredded. But again, much like you were saying, once you bring it in and you say, oh, I need that back, I'm so sorry, I cannot help you. The next event, I think Peter is hosting it, is the Pasta Dinner on February 5th at 5:30. And that is actually the day that the building opened 26 years ago. So it just so happens we've turned it into a birthday party pasta dinner.
Excuse you just one second. Jim Noonan would be so proud that that's the event that's going to kick it off.
He would be, you're absolutely right.
He was the king of pasta dinners.
And the community center was one of his favorite things. So.
You bet.
On February 6th and also March 6th, we are doing sound bath meditation. You can stop by. And it's February, which means the ducks are back. We are doing a decorated duck. You can pick up your duck at the front desk. They are free. On February 9th, we start to give them out. They are numbered and we keep track of them, but pick up your free duck and you have to bring it back to us. They go on Ducks on Display. They get voted on. We will be calling in the firm to tabulate all of the votes because it has gotten very competitive, a little scary out there some days. Laser tag will be happening in the gym from 2 to 4 p.m. on February 17th. If I could just reiterate, you need to sign up in advance. This is a very popular event, and we only have so many spaces, so there is a code, or you can go right to the community center website to sign up, because I don't want anyone to not be able to get in. On February 18th, along with the event we are doing about create your new sticker, we are also doing an indoor duck scavenger hunt in the community center. We do this every year during school vacation, and I'm pretty sure they get there around 6. That's not when the hunt happens, but they start looking that early. It's just a hint. So whenever you have an opportunity, look around, find some ducks. There are fabulous prizes to be given out. And then on February 19th at 6 p.m., we are doing music bingo. No, I'm not singing. It is safe to come. And then on February 27th, we have Ask Gen Z. We get a lot of questions at the front desk of people saying, can you tell me, somebody who can tell me what this means? Everyone in the school is like, yeah, we know. So we have a box at the front desk where you can ask any question. We have some wonderful students and people in the community who have offered to come have a panel discussion. It's free. It should be really interesting, or at least we're hoping. The last thing I will mention is the new newsletters are out. We will send them to you if you would like them emailed to you, but you can pick them up around town as well. Thank you very much, and we hope we see you for some of the birthday.
Maybe you could bring the laser tag here next week.
Careful what you wish for.
They wouldn't be set to stun, I'm telling you. Any other staff announcements? All right, moving on to the weekly briefing.
Just real quick update on the sewer work going on 1 East and 2 West in East Harwich. Working on Pleasant Bay Road to Bova Cove Road. They started working on Church Street as well. And the 2-week look ahead, they'll begin on Perry's Way, in addition to those other roads I just mentioned, in 2 West and the Chestnut Street Pump Station. The 2-week look ahead for 2 West, they'll start working on Harding Lane as well. So moving along, despite the weather, things are still progressing and they're still able to get work accomplished. As far as the Great Sand Lakes Phase 3A, the only thing I wanted to know, we'll have an updated milestone chart in your packet next week, but we've moved up the bidding date to February 25th, which will then move up the bid opening date to March the 24th. So anything we can do to accelerate, again, is to ensure that we get a contractor on contract no later than 30 June of 2026. That's all I have for that.
Okay. It looked like we're doing well with the dry pipe, too. in terms of funding?
Yes, yeah, we just got notification that, this is the dry pipe on Route 28, notification of some loan forgiveness through the Clean Water Trust, so about $33,000 and some change, but any little bit helps. They still haven't picked a contractor yet or a contract start date, so
But it's still in motion.
still in motion.
Any questions for the town administrator? All right, the consent agenda.
Public comment?
Yeah, public. Well, there we go. It's the first time I've seen us outnumber the public in terms of what the agenda is going to be, but the public comment, anyone?
About anything, or,
Sure, that's what it's for.
okay, well, I'm here.
No, you have to,
I will. My name is Pam Kendall, 86 Old Chatham Road, North Harwich. I'm here for, I have seen that the Cape Cod Commission has sent the POV issue back to the Harwich Board of Select.
actually, that's not what it is, but I could caution you. We can't respond to you for what you're saying here, but we'd be perfectly happy for you to have a discussion at the agenda item when we do discuss the letter.
That's why I asked you.
Sure.
So do you want me to sit back down and then?
Otherwise, we can't respond to anything you're saying.
Okay, well, that's why I asked. Thank you.
Sure. Any other public comment? Is it okay now?
Proceed.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move, excuse me.
Would you mind splitting these, please? I wasn't
Sure,
here.
yeah. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the Select Board meeting minutes from January 10th, 2026.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 10th, 2026. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Select Board meeting minutes from January 20th, 2026.
Second.
Sorry.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that, on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Abstain.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't here.
You still could vote.
I'm going to abstain.
Well, good. 401.
Mr. Chair, I move we vote to approve the acting town administrator's recommendation to grant permission by N-Star Electric Company, DBA Eversource Energy, to install 33 plus or minus of 1 to 3 inch conduit along Braddock Street.
Don't all rush to second it.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the request from N-Star Electric.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
with the inclusion of that the road and/or property will be returned to its current condition,
Or better.
or better.
Take that as
Part of your motion, correct?
part of the motion,
All
part
right.
of the second.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move that we vote to approve the appointment of Richard Siegel to the Bikeways Committee, full member, term to expire June 30th, 2027, as recommended by the interview committee.
Second?
Okay, it's moved and seconded. The only discussion I was going to have, and I'm not going to be obstructionist with this, but it was going on, so I felt like it should be at least stated publicly. The last time this gentleman was involved, when I was interviewing and Michael was interviewing, it seemed we didn't come to a very good conclusion. It sounded like you didn't understand that the whole role of it was to be advisory to us. And if you're making that, making the motion and you're comfortable with, that's fine, but if it turns out he starts doing something, we're going to have to refer back to the interview committee in the future if that bad a behavior. But other than that, I'm not going to stall it. So,
Perfect.
okay. All right, any further discussion on the appointment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm just going to abstain. All right, we have a joint meeting with the Select Board and the Monomoy Regional School Committee. Come on up.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
This is where we begin to outnumber the audience.
That's right.
How are you? Thanks, man. That was for all 5 of us, by the way.
He's the official reader.
I'm closest.
So before we start, Meredith, you want to just call your part of the Honor My School Committee together in the session?
I would like to call our meeting to order at 6:47. Oh.
All righty, so we're all together here. Just so the public knows, the vacancies, according to the Monomoy School Agreement, any vacancies occurring in the regional school district for any cause shall be filled by the local, what says Board of Selectmen, Select Board, and the remaining regional district school committee members from the town where the vacancy occurs. The members of the Board, Selectmen / Select Board shall meet in joint session with the remaining members of the regional school district from the town where the vacancy occurs. A majority vote of the members of this joint session shall be required to fill the vacant position. Such replacement shall serve until the next annual town election, which would be this May. At that annual town election, a person will be elected to serve the balance of the unexpired term, which had become vacant. I'm pretty sure everybody knew that, but I want to make sure that the public hears it. So with that, we have 2 candidates. And the first one that's listed is Brett Fortin. Come on up. We have a special seat for you. It's wired.
Maybe not the seat, but.
How you doing, Brett?
I'm well, how are you?
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Broadly, I was going to say the same thing to everybody. They could make an opening statement about why they would like to do it, and then we'll get to each of the individual questions. So it's your moment to say, we're going to allow for approximately a half hour of discussion over, questioning, but you have an opening statement, and you can make a closing statement for yourself.
Sure. Chairman, thank you for your time. Sure. Madam Chair, everyone else. My name is Brett Fortin. I hope to help. I'm interested in serving in this interim role because I value stable, collaborative representation. I value the role that our school committee plays in our broader community. I understand and appreciate that this role is about stewardship and about support during a transitional time. I believe that my recent work on the superintendent's screening committee, as well as my commitment to public service in both Harwich and Chatham, served me well here. If there's a positive contribution to be made here, I hope to make it. That's it.
Okay, great. We don't have to pull lots. I promise Meredith that the school committee can have the first question.
Go ahead,
Good to
Ray.
go?
Yeah.
Okay. What has been your experience with Monomoy Regional Schools? Parent, faculty member, et cetera?
My daughter's a second grader at Harwich Elementary, and as previously discussed, I served on the superintendent screening committee. It's been great. I love the Monomoy Regional School District so far.
Thank you.
And what we need to understand, because Meredith and I talked about this too, whatever you ask of one, you ask of both. So thank you for the question, and I'm going to rotate into back and forth. So Jeff, you have any specific questions?
Yeah, Brett, thanks for being here. I have a few questions. I'll start with softball, I think. Are you able to make, without question, the majority of the meetings
Of course.
that the school committee will hold?
Yes.
No conflicts?
I'm a parent, but I have excellent support at home.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Defer to you.
Hi, Brett. Monomoy will have a new superintendent in July, who will also be new to the role of the superintendent. How would you, as a school committee member, support the new superintendent's success?
I'm pretty invested in the success of our new superintendent. In the process of her finding her way there, she spoke numerous times about relationship building, which I helped to facilitate. Dr. Millen is shockingly qualified for this role, and I think in effort to support her, I'd really hope to learn from a lot of the work that she's done leading up to her being in this role, and help her advocate for things she spoke of during the process. I believe that the work that she intends to do will be a very valuable asset to our community.
I did print out the questions that we are asking. I don't know if it's helpful for you all to have a copy if you wanted to take notes under our questions or if you don't.
They've been admonished that if a question gets asked, they gotta move on to something different, so that we don't need to know unless you're saying it.
Okay.
Mark?
Brett, I know you from your previous run. I know your daughter is in school. What's your idea on cell phones in schools? A lot of places are banning them during the course of the day. Just want to get your feel on that.
This is an issue that I don't really have to deal with a lot in my home because my daughter's 8, which is great. I grew up in a time when cell phones were just coming to be in schools. I was probably one of the first generations of kids to have access to them and bring them in school. A lot of the rules that were written when I was there. Times are different now, and the need to communicate with your family and those outside, whether it be for personal family reasons or for help in some instances, is big. That being said, they are a huge distraction, even for us, as adults. I think that there needs to be a responsible management of that while still giving kids the access to communication with others that they need. Personally, I think that the school district does a really good job of managing that currently, and I think that there's a lot to be said about preservation of that work.
Good evening. What qualities do you think you could bring to the Monomoy School Board that would be, beneficial to helping them out?
I think that I work really well collaboratively, generally pretty respectful of the experience of the people around me. I'm focused on the long-term sustainability of our community. I see how the school committee impacts every other department in town. I'm a public works employee in the town of Chatham. The district decisions affect my daily work. I think that I have a pretty good relationship with community leaders. And really my friends tell me I'd be good at this. And my friends tend to be teachers and leaders and caretakers of our community right now. And I think that that really has pushed me here. So I hope that answers the question.
By the way, anybody who wants to follow up on a question that they ask could certainly do so. Pete, do you have anything that you wanted to follow up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the next question, is
No.
that okay? Oh,
Pete
okay,
and I
no-
haven't gone
no
yet.
follow-up.
Oh,
Okay,
no, he hasn't gone yet, he wants to.
Oh, you have?
I have not yet.
It's your turn.
Okay.
Sorry. We were blowing by. Sorry about that.
How would you handle a situation in which the committee made a decision or vote in which you disagree?
I'm on a few committees right now, and often I disagree with the people around me. We are a committee for a reason. I am not the final say in any capacity. What can you do other than, work collaboratively with the people around you? That's it, right? You just have to, if you don't win in a situation, you just have to move on and do the next right thing, so.
Thank you.
Any follow-up? Sorry again. Pete?
Thanks for being here tonight. Obviously, over the past 2+ years, there's been a lot of conversation about the regional agreement. So curious as to your understanding of the agreement and thoughts on parts of the agreement that could or should be looked at and potentially modified.
Yeah, no, it's like one of the pressing issues for us, is Chatham increasingly shrinks faster than us. There's a lot to that, I don't know that I have specific answers as to points that could be improved upon. I do think that we need to focus more on collaboration between the two towns and maybe strengthening our community ethic, if that's a real term. There's a lot of, it'd be really easy for us to start working against each other in a situation like this. And I think that one thing that really makes Monomoy as a school district shine is its ability to like represent itself as a district and not two separate entities. And I think that like that spirit might be necessary in solving the regional agreement problems that we're in right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll leave it to me to interject. A question that has to do with the reality of who's funding what. Who do you think you're representing as a member of the Monomoy School Committee?
The students of the district.
Okay. To that end, and I get where you're coming from, but to that end, I'm assuming that meant that you want the best education possible for them to do that. But there is a reality. I mean, if you wanted to buy the best car you could possibly buy, but you didn't have the money for that, there would have to be some reality. Given the fact that we're an 80% contributor, nonetheless, you see here members of the Harwich part of the Monomoy School Committee, because that's the way the construct worked. You were representing the town going into that. Is there a place in that discussion to recognize the realities of capacity to pay?
Is there a place in that conversation? Yeah. I think that that's like reasonable, and I think that it has weight. But I think in the end that the school committee members represent the district as a whole, not their host towns. I think that the role of the school committee is to advocate for the students and those tasked to care for them, regardless of which town they happen to work in. You know what I mean? I understand that like the regional agreement separates us in terms of funding. But yeah, I think that that's my feeling on that. I think that like as a representative, you know, Harwich may send me, but while I'm there, my role would be to advocate for those that are benefiting from the services.
Okay.
Could I build on that, if I may? I can wait.
You have to wait, because it's
Absolutely.
only fair that we go back again to the,
Absolutely.
All right, what issues would you hope to explore or address as a member of the school committee?
I wrote this down. I think that staff contracts are something that I would be able to contribute to positively. I'm the president of the biggest union in the town of Chatham right now. I advocate for staff's working conditions on a regular basis. I'm interested in contributing to, I guess, initiatives that continue to preserve the work that's been done for student support and like social and emotional well-being. I'd like to maybe contribute to regional coordination. I have pretty good relationships with the people in the town of Chatham, and in my limited experiences with some of you, I've really enjoyed that time as well. And then if, you know, given the opportunity, I'd really like to contribute to a really positive transition with a new superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could follow up on the negotiation question? Yeah. You alluded that you're the president of one of the largest unions in Chatham. How do you flip the hat from being the employee to the management side of that negotiation?
We all got our talents, huh? It's hard. You know, I have been lucky in that the people that often sit across the table from me and myself have the same goals, and that's the sustainability and viability of our community. We might have different priorities in the beginning of that conversation, but in the end, I have yet to encounter a person sitting across the table from me that had a goal other than doing the right thing from where they live. So I hope I don't encounter anything different.
Thank you.
you're on.
I want to thank you for letting Pete jump in front of me, because that was my question, but I'll ad lib now.
I did not know that even
No, that's okay.
mentally.
That's okay, Mr. Chair.
Great
Brett,
question, though.
yeah, it was a hell of a
Just
question.
telling you.
Yeah, so, union president, budgeting, what's your level of comfort with a budget process that the school committee goes through? I mean, it's extensive, it's large. I'm sure you're comfortable at least speaking a little bit about the size of the budget in relation to the town of Harwich's overall budget. So I'm just trying to get a feel for how comfortable you are with the process of building a budget, working with administration, working with your colleagues, and then bringing what you put together to the Harwich Select Board.
I would say fairly confident.
Fairly confident?
No, I mean, like, it's a significant number, over $52 million, and it was $49 million the year before that, It's gone up significantly in the, 13 years since it was conceived for the first time. And, there's been various reasons for that, whether it was like the formation of the regional agreement to begin with, or any major projects, but like in the end, the process of creating that budget, at least for the Monomoy district, seems to be pretty daunting, right? I mean, it's a zero, beginning at every level. So it's not just what we had last year plus whatever we think we need this year. It's reassessing every single time, and that's a big task. But it isn't pretty much everything that we do of importance a big task at this point, right? We're talking about the sustainability of the people that care for our communities and make sure that the people that are going to live here after us are going to be successful. Is it a big, giant, daunting, scary, intimidating task? Yeah, for sure. But I guess I'm not really intimidated by that. I'm a capable learner. I'm creative and critical when I think, I'm engaged where I live. And I think that I can collaboratively work with the people around me to succeed.
Thank you. Can I ask one more quick, Mr. Chair? How up to date are you with where we sit right now with this budget process?
I know that we're on the second draft. I've been following the process since the beginning, whether it's on a Zoom meeting or, but I've been to most of the meetings that you've been to at this point.
I'm just trying to figure out what Pete's about to ask and ask it right now so he doesn't get that chance.
He was going to ask me what my favorite color was.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'll get back to you. Meredith?
You kind of alluded to this in your opening statement, but in what capacities have you worked with the district or been involved with the district or on district committees? And how has that work or participation motivated you to take on the role of being on the school committee?
Well, I ran for the school committee seat that Ryan's sitting in right now. And I learned a lot in that process about what I didn't know, what I didn't fully understand that the school committee and how they impacted our broader community. And then I was on the superintendent screening committee and, saw, I guess, just how deeply entrenched and committed to that work you guys are. Yeah, other than that, I work with a lot of other town leaders. I work with the town manager at Chatham regularly. I'm in human resources departments. I encounter Michael in more than just his capacity here in the school, but also his capacity with Cape Cod Municipal Health Group. Where we live matters, and we are the people that are tasked with taking care of it right now. And so I have tried to find myself in situations where I can influence that in a positive way.
Thank you.
Brett, we mentioned the regional agreement. If we reach an impasse, how would your union experience try and get us past that point? And we haven't started negotiations yet, we haven't heard back from Chatham, but as we start negotiations, what could you do to help us to get past an impasse? Say, for example, if Chatham says, we don't want to really speak to this.
Yeah. That's kind of the deal with negotiating in a public setting, is that in the end, one side can just say no, and we find ourselves not really bargaining, but begging in a lot of contexts. I believe deeply in respectful collaboration. I feel that if we look at the situation with the end goal of the betterment of our community, it's going to be unlikely that someone sitting across the table will stonewall us. A stronger Harwich means a stronger Chatham, just like a stronger Chatham means a stronger Harwich. We need each other, and no one is going to come over this bridge to help us going forward. We're going to need each other, and we're going to need other communities as well to help out. I think that I would be able to help maybe broaden that message to the right ears. At least I'm hoping.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you. What is your vision for good communication between members and the superintendent, as well as with the community?
I think that we do a really good job of that already, truthfully. I don't know that I, as the person I am, have a better way of doing that. I think that the district really does a good job of communication. I think that it's about preserving that kind of culture.
Thank you.
Any follow-up?
Nope.
Okay.
How do you see your role as a school committee member in the long-term planning for public education?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. If you're appointed to the school committee, how do you see your role in a long-term planning for the public education for these two towns?
I see that role as very similar to the, I work for the Parks and Grounds Department in the town of Chatham, and I see the school committee role as a similar thing. It's about stewardship of like a greater entity. In my day job, I get to take care of parks and cemeteries and the history of where we live. But I think in the role of the school committee, it's about taking care of the policies and tools that are going to be given to the next people that live here. I hope to help with fair and sustainable policy setting. I think that that's something that I view that person would have to do. And I hope to maybe fairly represent my community. But in the end, I see that role is just a steward of where we live.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
So you would see this basically as like a good leadership role. You're setting a good example.
Yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of time in Monomoy talking about being engaged citizens, about being independent and confident in our communities, about being leaders. And my daughter's in second grade. She's going to be hearing these messages a lot, and I'd like to maybe be the person that I hope she's proud of one day.
Thank you.
Pete, if Jeff hasn't actually taken that question.
No, actually, Mr. Edwards did. But it's all right. It's a great question. Clearly, the school department's here tonight to present their FY27 budget. Potentially much larger than some of us are comfortable with. You said you've spent the past several months attending the meetings, listening to budget presentations and all the other material. Does anything in the current proposed budget stand out to you? Is there anything that causes you concern? Any areas that you think that you could focus in on, for any particular reason?
A lot of things in the budget cause me concern, but they're no different in the school budget than they are in any other budgets that are being presented, and likely any other communities where we live, right? I mean, the unsustainable rise in healthcare costs for public employees is just like this runaway train that we're just going to have to, at some point, deal with. And the same goes for property insurance and transportation costs. We're going to see these just continue to rise, and I am very concerned about those things. Do I have a solution for how to solve them? No. But I am not certainly going to be willing to take, well, we're raising costs again as the end of that conversation, for sure. I think that there's a lot to be done there. I mean, is health insurance and property insurance not the two largest driving factors of that increase in the budget, right? It costs more money for me to live here because it costs more money for health insurance for staff. So.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it's personnel costs, contracts and negotiations. I wasn't going to go there, but there is a difference, and I'd like you to be able to address that. you're dealing with sending a budget over to an entity where you represent a top-line budget and delete that money before it gets allocated to the rest of the town government. You're not under the town government. We have no control whatsoever about anything, so whatever bill gets sent is the bill that gets sent. So you just need to have you understand that there is some sort of ceiling that would affect the Chatham and the Harwich kids if we went to, say, an override, which I would dearly love to avoid. But the relationship between us and Chatham is actually more disparate than what Yarmouth and Dennis had through the years in terms of size. So how would you navigate that?
How would I navigate the difference?
Yeah,
Maybe I'm not
because the reality is the formula is the formula. And then Jeff had talked to that about how you would want to address a change in the agreement, because that's a whole different discussion. But there is a budget that parses out by percentage, because that's what the representation has right now embodied in the agreement, where there's an allocation being made. And if one of the partners does not have the capacity to do that, how would you navigate that?
You know, that's a big situation, right? And if one can't fulfill the end that they are obligated to, I don't know that that has happened, at least that I've been a part of. There's a lot of situations that I am not exactly an expert in, and I think that one of the benefits of being in a committee and being in a group is being able to collaboratively work together. I think that we need to maybe address our regional agreement for long-term sustainability, but I mean, it is where it is right now, and we just need to have that conversation.
I have a real quick question, if you have anything that's really urgent to add to it. This is the obvious question. Should you be appointed, since it's only for a few months, do you have intentions on pulling papers and actually running for the position for the unexpired term?
I already have,
Okay,
actually.
that's what we're here for publicly. Nobody knows that except for us.
It was in the Chronicle.
Who reads that?
People that can read don't.
Can you step up to the mic, please, and say that?
I keep trying to get the voice version of it on the internet.
Bill won.
Are there any other summary questions that you want to ask? We appreciate your time and effort and for coming in, and
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
very much
having
for
me.
being
I
here.
appreciate you all and your time, too.
Thank you.
Brett.
so, Anne Marie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight.
You get a brief opening statement.
So my name is Anne Marie Varela. I have been an educator for over 25 years, and I've had the fortunate experience of working here on the Cape in our communities, where my two boys are members of the Monomoy Regional High School. The impetus for running really is about children. I am hopeful that children have access, equitable access to all of the same resources and opportunities. I am hopeful to improve student engagement, particularly in civic opportunities in our communities, as well as work with families as partners. So I really see this as an opportunity to lead by example and teach our kids that we all have a responsibility to participate when we want to see things that are better for our futures.
Well, you just answered a lot of it. Your experience with Monomoy Regional Schools, but you just, yeah.
So, I mean,
kinda laid it out, yeah.
it's been a great experience to be involved in the schools and to see this community. You know, at the elementary level, I was really involved and excited for an intervention program that didn't currently exist at that school before. That opportunity really allowed me to work closely with families of students that needed support, extra support in math. In addition, we spent the year adopting practices like progress monitoring, using running records for mathematics. We built in a push-in model for inclusion where those same students were receiving support from me in the classroom. It was an awesome experience at the elementary level, and prior to that I had been in an elementary school for 11 years. So it really gave me the opportunity to share some of my knowledge and experience with the elementary teachers there, and I think everybody will agree it was a huge success. As the STEM director for the district, I represented the district at many statewide opportunities to share knowledge and experiences and build those connections. As a parent, I get to see my boys participate in sports and, meet with other families that have their kids involved, and it's a great experience to be part of. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Good to see you.
You too.
The softball question, are you capable and able to make majority of all of the school committee meetings?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sorry, that was real
That's
quick.
okay, that was quick.
Yeah, that was quick.
He's always terse.
Monomoy will have a new superintendent who will also be new to the role of superintendent. How would you, as a school committee member, support the new superintendent's success?
So I believe wholeheartedly in the leader of our district, and that sets the tone for success for the district. I think partnerships within the community, which I have a lot of, is a great opportunity to collaborate with the superintendent, as well as, inclusive opportunities with some of the work that I currently do with students with mental health concerns and substance use concerns.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Marie, I like your math background. I know at the high school they're going to add a position for a math interventionist, which is good. But overall, math scores, and not just in Monomoy, but statewide, maybe nationwide, are really a lot lower than the English things. How do you, excuse me, how do you address the weaknesses in math that are affecting our schools as well as other schools? You have experience. How do you do that?
I think I brought up student engagement earlier, and I think that's a huge part of it, is engaging students in the curriculum in ways that are non-traditional. Some of what's happening with the internships across the district for students that are juniors and seniors at the high school level is an excellent example of what I'm talking about. I think there's a huge piece of financial literacy that we are all asking that young people are exposed to. So I think we have to look at some of the experiences that we're putting in front of students and create more relevant and life-connecting experiences with what they're learning in math. I think oftentimes, I remember the train leaves the station type of math problems, and I still think some of what we're teaching has those, real sort of abstract meanings to students. And I think when we bring what we're doing to a real-world level, and we have those conversations with young people about what's successful and how they see themselves using, my favorite question in math classroom was, when am I ever going to use this? I mean, I could go on and on and on with kids, but the reality is, when are you going to use it? And so when we start talking to them about their experiences and what they're learning from those experiences, they start to envision how they're going to use it in their life. So I think we have to really talk to kids about what's working for them and what's not.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How would you handle a situation in which the committee made a decision or vote with which you disagree?
So I see being a member of a committee as a partnership, and I look at the role to be representative of the people. And so if I've got the majority of people that don't agree with me, they probably agree with more of the townspeople than I do, so I'll take their word for it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Same questions as before, so your turn.
My turn. What qualities can you bring to the school board in your experience for public service?
Yeah, so I'm extremely service-oriented. I have my entire life worked in the service business, serving others. I enjoy spending time serving other people. Selfishly, I get something out of it. So I'm community-focused in that sense, in terms of wanting to see everybody be successful, wanting to make sure everybody has dinner tonight, wanting to, ensure that children get to live like a child and not be asked to be adults too soon in life. So I think collaboration, service-oriented, and community-focused are probably the greatest things I would bring.
Thank you.
So, since you sent the note, just to remind everybody for the second time, it's the same questions as the first.
Okay, I was the note passer, okay? So let's not discuss this in front of the school.
Yeah, okay. Your turn.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. And to be quite honest with you, I never gave a damn when Bob was going to arrive at the train station. Never cared. Unless I was on that train, it was irrelevant. But in all seriousness, and again, you've heard the question already, but the regional agreement, it's been a topic of conversation for years. Your understanding of the agreement, your thoughts on parts that could or should be modified, and potential impact of such things?
I think there was a time when things made sense. We were talking about, each town operating their own elementary school, and I mean, we see that on Lower Cape still. And I think that that's a place of pride for communities, right? And so I understand that part of it felt really important back then. But I think what's really important now is the children see us as the adults in the room take their best interests to heart. So we look at the conditions of all students and not try to isolate Chatham students versus Harwich students, or families, or, I've heard stories. I didn't live here then, but I've heard stories around, the competition. I don't want to see that happening with kids. I want to see, and to be honest, I don't really see that happening with kids. I talk to the boys a lot about their experiences at school, and I just want us to be the adults in the room and talk about what's really in the best interest of the next generation. And this sort of gets to the long-term planning piece, but, we have to start thinking about it that way. Yes, costs are going to go, of course costs are going to go up, but when we start to look at the reality of what those costs mean, personally, the transportation cost seems exorbitant. And I worked in Cambridge, where transportation costs are exorbitant. But the reality is, we want kids to be safe and get to school safe and have a ride to school and a ride home every day. We want the late buses. We want kids to stay after school when they need extra help. So there's a reason why we're paying what we're paying. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the overall health of the community, because that's what's going to be left. And so the regional agreement is a place for a conversation about saying times have changed, and what is it that we can do better for our kids.
Thank you.
I'm going to take the express route to this question, since I actually pressed on with a second question. Who do you think you represent, and if it's more than one place, how do they interrelate?
Brett and I agree on a lot of things, and I am here.
I want to hear from you, not him.
I'm here about children, I will say that, but I'm also here to talk about families. I've recently been selected to represent, our community on the Parent Community Educational and Instructional Advisory Council to the Commissioner, and I'll tell you, hearing from the families that are part of this team, and the work that they've accomplished is really, really inspiring. And so, yes, I represent the town of Harwich and the residents of Harwich, but I represent children and I represent families.
Okay. Next round.
What issues would you hope to explore or address as a member of the school committee?
So equity is one of my core values, and I just feel like we have to constantly be talking about how opportunities can be more equitable for kids. And I mean, it comes down to the late bus type of stuff. It comes down to paying for uniforms for kids. It comes down to giving rides to kids that don't have an opportunity to get there. But it's those kinds of community conversations that I really want to see us having, so that everybody does have equal access to the opportunities. We have a lot of incredible opportunities for young people in schools. And I just want to make sure that that's getting to every family that we have here. In addition, I'm working right now with youth that are dealing with mental health crises. I mean, anxiety and depression and things I haven't seen before. And substance use. And we know that that's an issue for young people in ways of coping with the stress and the trauma in their lives. So, looking at curriculum and opportunities to have some of these conversations during the day with kids in a general setting. One of the things we do with the kids who come to our program is role playing. And I mean, it's easy enough to, put a kid in a situation where that's not their everyday life, but then to grow the compassion for others and to grow in their ability. So CASTLE is, the primary framework we work with: self-awareness, self-management, decision-making, and all of these conversations we're having with young people need to be had with all young people right now. And then positive experiences, civics. Like, this is the opportunity. I bring them with me to sign the paperwork at Town Hall. I bring them with me to come here tonight to say, when you want to be part of something, you want to be part of the change, you have to step up. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You wanted to jump in?
No.
Okay, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anne Marie, what is your comfort level building a budget such as a budget like this that is so important to both towns? And the follow-up question on that would be, how current are you with the process that the school committee's gone through so far and where they're at today?
So I appreciate all the finance committee work around this. So I too like to look longitudinally at data and costs and what's happening over time. I think the enrollment numbers are a concern where we're looking at staffing increases, and again, it's likely mental health and those types of spaces that we're hiring people for. So my comfort level with the budget is really about transparency and really about understanding what it is that we think we're paying for, and then what it is that we're getting for what we're paying for. And so I want to be sure that that level of transparency is out there for folks that are interested in participating in the budget conversation. I appreciate that the drafts are available online. I appreciate all of the hard work that Mr. McMillan has put into trying to make that so that it's something that everybody can understand. But I think there's space there for conversation. And I think, $1 million is a lot of money when we're talking about being off by a little bit. So, where is it? And I'm not saying it comes from one thing. I was disheartened last year when there was a conversation about cutting professional learning. I do not think that's the answer. But they're big ticket items. So where can we save? How can we build on our partnerships with the collaborative or other organizations in the community to try to save on some of the costs that we're putting into it? I think a lot about, the curricular programming that we purchase. It's expensive, but we have to start to ask for the things that we think we need, that we don't have to go out and buy somewhere else, that are part of that programming. We have to partner with these vendors and sort of say, you're the experts, like, talk to us about what we should be asking for and what we can get, and to be able to cut savings here and there as opposed to seeing one large thing fall off.
Thank you.
In what capacities, and you kind of already touched on this in your opening statement, Have you worked with the district or participated in district events or committees, and how has this motivated you to take on the role of being on the school committee?
Yeah, I mean, I've forever been on school councils, and I stepped up when I'm on the high school school council for Monomoy High School. I also participated in the DEIB committee for a couple of years. CPAC is on my list. My children are not special ed students, but I believe strongly in equitable access for special ed students. So these are places where I feel like I can really contribute, as a parent and as a community member, just to have my voice heard and to speak for those who don't feel comfortable stepping up to do that. But I think that's always why I've sought this position, is I'll have people tell me things that aren't really comfortable with coming forward, and I have no problem doing that.
Would you position Anne Marie on social media and cell phones in the schools?
I read The Anxious Generation, and it's a data book. I'm a data person. I look at all the data, and I'm interested in it. But I'll be honest, the social media is a real detriment to all of us. I feel like we doom scroll. People, will send you messages, and we have time for that? I don't have a lot of time for that. I'm looking at it like, what is it actually getting you, right, in terms of the social media? Is it building confidence in you? I don't think so. I think we have to have conversations. I mean, my boys have had technology, had phones, but we have conversations a lot about the decisions they make and what they're watching and what they're listening to and where it comes from. And, it's a lot of work as a parent. I don't expect everybody's doing that or has the time to do that, particularly people that are working multiple jobs. So it's just really hard to stay on top of that. So I think there's a place for us as a community to talk about what we see as the effects of social media, and to have young people come forward and say, I feel so much better because I stopped looking at my phone an hour before I went to bed. I mean, they're simple changes, but these are some of the things that we ask young people to do at our program, like make a simple change and see how that impacts your overall well-being. Cell phones in the school, again, I think Monomoy has done a really good job. I think kids know there's a time and a place to use their phone. I mean, we don't bring a phone to church. We don't bring a phone. And my kids will have, I'll send them a message like, oh, yeah, I'll be there to pick you up. And I get the notification that says, Cooper has his notification silenced because he's in class and he turns it off. I mean, they're developing those habits to be good at using the phone when it's appropriate and when it's not. I think when you all out ban things, kids don't have the opportunity to develop those skills. So I'm pleased with the cell phone policy here. I think we can do better on social media.
Thank you.
Just let me know later what that church is that nobody brings a phone to.
I won't say they don't bring it, but they don't have it on.
I've heard that they bring it. Right.
What is your vision for good communication between members and the superintendent, as well as with the community?
Yeah, so this is a big one for me, and campaigning for the last couple of years, this is what I talk about. There's a real opportunity to solicit feedback from the community. I've been doing it for years. I send parents surveys. You don't always get full 100% participation, but that's okay, because the people who didn't get their voice represented fill it out the very next time you send one. It is, I'm at the grocery store. I mean, there's so many opportunities to do this, but I believe in meeting people where they're at to have these conversations. And so communication for me is a huge component of this role. I would not only be sending out the agendas and the videos, I would tell people the timestamps of places that I think they should watch that are appropriate to what their concerns are. I would, send my version of the notes that I took and share those with people. I would sit with people and have coffee and talk about some of the things that I heard and what process together. I mean, I strongly believe in shared leadership and perspective gathering. So when we have the opportunity to hear from people that want to be heard, right, this is where the next level comes in of sharing their perspective. And to be honest, as an individual, I grow my own perspective. I become more knowledgeable, more worldly, and be able to meet more people where they're at.
Okay, and you kind of touched on this. How do you see your role as a school committee member in planning for public education and the leadership?
Yeah, I mean, my leadership style is to include everyone. I really feel like we are better together than we are as individuals. And if we're looking for ideas, opportunities, impacts, positive change, if we're looking for these things, then we really have to include the perspective of others. And so, I think about Brene Brown and her leadership style, which basically says clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And so if we're not clear with the people about what we think or how we feel, we are not really being fair. We're expecting them to be forthcoming with us. She also talks about things like rumbling with vulnerability. There was a period in time, maybe in high school, that I was shy, and I always tell everybody I've been making up for that the rest of my life. I'm not shy. I speak up. And so if there's an opportunity to be vulnerable and no one else is going to do it, I'll do it. I share my experiences with the kids. I talk about how life isn't perfect and, that we have to learn from those experiences. And I really hope that, as a result, people don't have to, relive those maybe instances that they're not proud of or instances of difficulty. We can talk about it together and possibly have that shared vision of progress.
Thank you.
I saw your two sons and your husband smirk when you said there was one point in time that you were shy.
They didn't know me back then.
And I think we've all said this second time around. You've touched on this a little bit with Jeff's question because it was an excellent question. But again, the budget, it's forefront in everybody's mind. The administration's here tonight to talk about it. So your thoughts on the current proposed district budget, and does anything give you pause or concern, and what type of ramifications do you see with those concerns?
I think there's been a lot of talk this year about securing grant funding. And it's one of the things I've done at multiple districts. I did it for Monomoy, I did it at Cambridge in terms of securing grant funding. I think it's a great opportunity for the district to look at places in the budget where we might need to cut back. I mean, again, we just keep talking about the increases. There are things like the curriculum programming that I talked about that I think is an opportunity for savings. I think technology is another place, and the use of technology. And I think it's great that everybody has a device in Monomoy, but, it comes at a cost, and it's what can we do differently to manage technology over time better. I think, in general, lower enrollment, higher staffing costs, and health insurance costs, and things like that are where maybe there's a place for us to look at. And again, you brought up the math data. I mean, I think achievement data is a huge place for us to become a top choice for the communities around us. And I look at that as an opportunity as well. I think, the budget process is a lot. It's a lot for a lot of people, but if we can start to look at where those pieces are that we can find savings or find funding from the state and federal government, I think we have an opportunity to really implement the programming that we know the students need.
Yep. And with the same question I asked before, understanding that it's a top-line budget for us, because we don't get to determine anything about our own budget until we get the bills in from certain things like the tech school and the school district, and understanding the magnitude that we contribute to the schools, and wanting to make sure that the discussion you both had about doing the best for the kids is really upheld. What strategies would you employ if we get to the point, and I encourage both of you to stay here and listen to the budget discussion, because it will have something to do with the municipal part of what we can and can't do. But what strategies would you employ to try to avoid an override and get to the point where we could close the deal for both towns?
Well, I mentioned earlier, transparency and communication, and I think having those open conversations about where the possibility is, and I think soliciting advice from the people who are involved, and what's working and what's not working, and finding savings through opportunities that maybe folks haven't thought of yet, right? So, again, I don't think there's, across the board items where we're really going to cut. As a resident, I've been at town meeting for the last couple of years, and I hear a lot of the discussions. So I think a way to, strategize is to think about what are some of those questions that we typically hear at town meeting? What are the real concerns that people have? And then responding to them in an opportunity through the budget process.
Okay, and deferring to Mr. Galvin over there, recognizing his circulation versus the 11,000 plus voters we have in town, there are still a few people who did not read that paper, so running or not?
I haven't pulled papers yet, but my intent would be to, at least for the one-year position.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.
and we need to deliberate. So, given the time constraints that we have, does anybody want to make a motion for anybody? There's only two.
I think we're fortunate, and when I say we, the town of Harwich is fortunate to have two parents that have interest in serving on the school board. And yes, for those that think I call it a school board deliberately, it's just what I call it. It's no disrespect to the committee name.
You served on one.
But nonetheless, I think we're fortunate to have two individuals, two parents that have a desire to serve. They've expressed a desire in the past. They both have run for office. And again, we are fortunate to have them. Rather than going down a litany of pros and cons, I would offer up a motion to appoint Anne Marie Varela as the fourth member of the Harwich delegate of the Monomoy Regional School Committee.
There's a second, okay. We have to go through the
Roll call.
roll call. So, Pete?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. I'm going to defer my vote till the end because I see where this is heading.
No.
No.
I'm a no.
Okay, so that's 4 noes and 1, 2, 3 yeses. I don't want to deadlock this, so I'll say no. So that would leave you with another motion to make.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Brett Fortin to fill the vacancy until May 19th, 2026 on the school committee.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Poll everybody?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Somebody's got to serve.
Yeah, again, it's a moot point at this point. Aye. So we move on.
Hopefully, you will both remain to hear the vagaries of municipal budgeting. But thank you both for coming, and thank you for being here. If you want to stay, I'm not sure that you represent the quorum of the whole committee at this point. This is a peculiar thing that has to do with the agreement and filling a slot. It's not,
As three, we are not a quorum.
okay. So you could successfully adjourn and still stay for the discussion.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
As far as the appointment goes, will it still follow the process that you typically do when you're appointing, where your office
Sends the
will
letter of
sends the
appointment.
letter to Emily?
Yep.
To town clerk?
And she has to swear them in. Until that occurs, it didn't happen.
Correct, okay. So a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll adjourn at 7:47. All right,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. As luck would have it, we're going to have a presentation of the draft school budget. Gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much.
Please start. I'll be right back.
All right. Michael McMillan, School Business Manager for Monomoy Regional School District.
Scott Carpenter, School Superintendent.
And we're here this evening to present the first approved draft of the district's budget. So we are here a little earlier in the process than we have been in recent years. So there are in the past we've come sort of further into February and March and a little closer to the end of the process, and we wanted to get before you earlier, get this conversation going and give you a bit more information. That does mean that there are some question marks still with the budget not being quite finalised, as we're waiting for, well, certain numbers I'll go into as we go through the process. But hopefully this will be useful for you to see where we've got to so far. So this is the exact presentation that we presented to the school committee. So we presented this to the school committee back in the January 15th, I think it was, and that was then approved as a first draft of the budget and sent to both select boards and finance committees for their information. So we thought it would be useful to just come before you and just run through the slides so you can see what the school committee saw. We also were planning to do this a week ago when it was a bit fresher from that meeting, so it's now 2 weeks ago, so things moved on a little bit. But so we'll go through this, give you some highlights, and open to any questions or comments or discussion. All right. So we had presented a version of the budget back in December, and the way things are going this year, it had slightly increased from then to the actual vote for the school committee in January. So it had gone up, so that's what this slide was just showing the difference. But the budget they approved was this one outlined in red here of just over 52.7 million, an increase over 7%. And then, not wanting to bury the lead, this is how the assessment broke down. So this, as you may be aware, when we break down the budget and assessments, we break down the assessment by the operating budget, transportation, capital and debt. And then this year we also separated out that portion of the assessment which relates to the middle school project. And it breaks down how much each of these categories has changed from FY25. But you can see at the bottom, the punchline is before the debt, it was an increase of 7.3% for Harwich and it's 6.8% for Chatham, and that goes up to around 8.5 and 7.75 once you include that debt. So one of the numbers that has changed since we completed this, and I'm just working on the implications of it, is this number, the minimum local contribution. So that's a number set by the state, and just because of the way the assessment formula works, it's the first thing that's assessed to each town, and so it determines it determines the share of the assessment between the two towns. And this is my estimate, and we actually have the final numbers in, so those will be updated and presented to the school committee next week. All right, so that was those are the two summary slides, and then over the next few slides is a bit more of the detail and exactly how we got to those numbers. I think, as was alluded to in the conversation and interviews earlier, there's a lot of pressure driving up our budget from a number of different areas. Obviously, the biggest one is health insurance. So we're carrying in this budget health insurance increase of 15%. So that's a pretty significant increase. We had a meeting of the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group last week, and it appears that it might not be quite that high, depending on how the discussion at the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group board goes next week. So hopefully that will help alleviate some of the pressure on the budget if this number is a little lower, if that percentage comes down. And it will depend a lot on the conversation and the decision that the Municipal Health Group board makes next week. I mean, in addition to that, just our contractual salary increases. Salaries are obviously the biggest part. Personnel is the biggest part of what we do and how we provide our services. And the salaries of those personnel, there's a lot of contractual increases that are driving a significant increase in the budget. And then we have another number of other items. Utilities, I think this is actually slightly undercooked. It might even be higher than this. Property insurance and our construction projects are all seeing increases. No, I've got a lot more information on that. So I should say it just quickly, and I'll come back to it. Property insurance, we actually adjusted this down in the draft of this budget that you have now, and I've got that in a further slide, but just so you're aware. We are aware of how significant this increase is, and in the budget we had already planned to make some specific staffing reductions which are driven by enrollment. So we are seeing falling enrollment. We are able to reduce staff as a result. And I think it'd be fair to say that the reductions here, many of them are multi-year cumulative effect of reductions. So it's not necessarily just going from FY26 to FY27. It's like you see small reductions over a number of years, and eventually you're able to make some staffing reductions. And so that's some of these what we're able to do. In some of these it is just a year-to-year fall in enrollment. And so that allows us to reduce over 8 positions and then offset by some increases. Also, some of those are grant-funded increases, which is why the financial impact isn't as high as you might otherwise expect. And that's what gets us to this overall reduction of 4.5 and a slight increase in Unit B. Sorry, I should have said Unit B are sort of instructional assistants largely, and also clerical assistants. And Unit A are teachers and other professional teaching staff.
I'm going to ask you to say that one more time, so I can write that down. Unit A
Yes.
is?
Unit A is our teachers and other professional staff, such as nurses, counsellors, and so on. And then Unit B, that is our instructional assistants, or clerical assistants, primarily, yeah. So as I alluded to earlier, there are some strategic enhancement requests, which is really, this budget is largely level budget where we've made some strategic amendments to where we're directing resources to meet the needs of our students. And this is those changes here. So these do include adding a number of staff, but as you saw earlier, it's still a net reduction in the number of staff. Some other equipment, some of it you'll recognize from last year when we were here, and items that were removed but are still needed, were removed from last year or this year's budget, but are still needed, and so appear here again. I won't go into these in detail, except to say that there is the Innovation Career Pathway Program at the high school would be partly funded by grants. So there's an offset down here. So we were still waiting to see if we get accepted into that grant program. If we do, then those items will be offset by the grant. If we don't get into the grant, then we won't go ahead with those items. So there'll be a net. You won't see that program going ahead if we don't have the grant.
Can I interrupt on that one?
Yeah.
So if you would receive the grant, how long is that good for?
It is good for, the first grant is for a year. And so then ongoing costs. But so then we would need to be able to determine if we could continue the program, then we would need to
Incorporate that in your next
incorporate
year's
that, that's
budget.
what I was looking for, into the budget. But then, and you know, that comes into those questions about our falling enrollment, because we know enrollment's going down at the high school, and so what we're trying to do increasingly is not add positions, but shift them, because this does, because we get, you know, we don't have more students, so we don't need more programs, but we need to meet the needs of those students better, and so this program would be about shifting existing staff to meet those needs, and that is what we've done partly when you saw some of those reductions. We were reducing one position so we could add, you know, this business position, the business teacher, to meet the needs of the students better. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yes.
Quick
thank you.
question.
Yeah.
Full-time equivalents, I'm looking on the internship program.
Yeah.
30,000, but 20,000 for health insurance. It's a .5 FTE. When's the break point between
So-
benefits and no benefits?
The 19 hours,
And that
so
would
over
be,
19.
that would be a decimal of what?
Well, it depends on the position.
Okay.
So, I mean, so I had assumed that, I had assumed that we would add, so it's a good point. So if that position, depends on exactly the nature of the position, there's a possibility we wouldn't need the health insurance for that position. But I was also, just to get into the weeds, I was concerned that we might end up converting an existing point, you know, someone who was 0.5 might look to take on the additional work, and then they would now be entitled to health insurance. So, I was maybe just being a little conservative, so I wasn't caught out, but yeah,
It
it's
just,
a good point.
you know, someone
Yeah.
makes 30,000 and
Yeah, and
all of
then
a sudden
health
they get
insurance is
20,000 in
20,
health
yeah.
insurance benefits.
And so the 20,000 insurance is sort of an average that I take, so actually some people's health insurance is higher than that. This incorporates, this is like an average, which includes people who don't have any health insurance, you know, because it's just a, you know, it's a placeholder, because I don't know exactly whether they're going to take health insurance or not, but
Okay, thanks,
it's
Mike.
over average. And then we do have a number of items here, you know, you saw our extensive capital plan. There's a number of items we'd hope to address. Continuing of some projects, like the capital flooring project, some needed technology, as we rely so heavily on the access to the internet and our network at the school, and a number of other projects, and also some multi-year projects we are hoping to get started in this year, and finally continue to contribute to the capital stabilization fund as we've done every year. Just for your information, this is our enrollment projections for next year. We use a weighted cohort survival method for estimating what the enrollment for the grades will be each year. And this shows that we're going to continue to see a reduction in all schools. And a lot of this depends on exactly what our pre-K and kindergarten numbers are, which we have less clarity over at this point. You know, we kind of have a good idea of what 7th grade is going to look like because we've got 6th grade right now, but it's harder to estimate, to predict where pre-K and kindergarten is going to be. And for the pre-K, for the PUPS program at Chatham, and then it's the special education program at Harwich Elementary. We do think that we have some sense of where that program is going to end up, and that does seem to be lower even than NICE estimates. So this is just how the budget changed from the December draft, which you had not seen, to the January draft. So this is really for the school committee's understanding of what's changing. You know, I know one of the interviewees alluded to the transportation costs. Those are significant in transporting students. We're seeing a big increase in transportation costs for a number of reasons, particularly when we have to use contracted services for example, when students are transported to placements outside of the district, and we're transporting them every day, and that can be expensive. We do a good job of, all those are always, bid out. We try and get quotes from multiple vendors, but there aren't that many vendors on the Cape, which is part of the challenge. I'm not going to go into this slide in detail, but this is partly just for your information, so you have this available to you. So we broke the budget down by the budget policy category. So this is slightly box checking, because our policy says we will provide this information. So we're providing the 5-year history of our budget by major account. So you can see the trend. I think I have a slide actually that might be, oh yeah, this is a much better way of seeing it. So this is the same information but just bar charts. So you can kind of get a sense just by looking at that of what's changed. Over here you have instruction, and that's on its own because the scale is so large that it doesn't, you know, if you put everybody else on that same scale, these all look way too small to really see anything. You know, when you look at this, I feel like there's no real obvious smoking gun to explain why the budget is going up so much and why it does go up every year, except health insurance. So this is our benefits and fixed charges. So basically, each one of these bars represents a year. The first 4 or 5 are expenditure, and the last couple are budget. And you can see benefits and fixed charges really since 2022 has been on a steady increase. And if we see a 15%, I mean, I feel like health insurance had kind of felt under control for the last few years, like that we hadn't seen any big increases, and just, but they've been accumulating, you know, we're starting to see 5, 6, 7, 8%, which is starting to feel a bit more painful, and then we're seeing this 15% this year. I really hope it's not going to be 15% though, so we shall see. I think that was the most striking for me. I mean, also instruction, you know, you just see this steady increase as a staff contract salary increases step up each year. We're actually seeing one other notable thing to highlight here is this programs with other school districts. So there's a lot going on in this category. It includes school choice and charter tuition. So that's when students attend other schools. So students who live in Monomoy, live in Chatham and Harwich, but attend other public schools, not Monomoy. That's through the school choice program or go to the charter program. So we've seen that number come down year on year proportionately fast. So we're losing fewer and a smaller percentage of students to other districts, which is a great boon for us because it doesn't cost us so much, and we get in when but we haven't seen a reduction, the same speed and reduction of students wanting to come here. So we're still receiving funds from school choice students coming into the district, and we're spending less for our students leaving. So that's why you see this slight reduction. Well, there's a couple of reasons you see this slight reduction here. That our charter numbers are down as well, and our special education out of district tuition, which is also included here. So that's where students have needs that we can't meet in district, and so we pay out of district schools to provide their needs, and we have to pay for that. And actually the number has not gone up, but the cost of providing those services has increased. So we see students with really extensive needs, and we're paying, you know, overnight, sometimes it's residential programs, sometimes day programs for those students, and that cost has increased, which has put a lot of pressure on the budget. However, we do get some relief from the state. So there's a program called Circuit Breaker, and we get some, so the year after you've paid the cost, you get some reimbursement from the state, and we saw a big increase in that this year because our costs increased so much. So, you know, I would rather get very little circuit breaker reimbursement because that means I don't have a lot of costs. But if I have a lot of costs, at least we get that reimbursement, which helps to reduce them, and you get it a year later. So that's partly there as well.
Chair, quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Michael. The outbound student is programs with other student districts.
Yes.
Is the inbound?
So the
other student services, the line above that?
No, so actually it's not, the inbound is all revenue, so it's not here at all.
Just revenue?
It's all revenue.
Okay.
So we get $5,000 to $6,000 per student from this, sort of through the state for students who come here, say if they live in Dennis or Yarmouth or Orleans, then we're getting that money through the state. When we get our state funding each month in the same way that you do, this town gets it, we get a similar, you know, payment from the state, and that includes some money for school choice.
Thank you. So what would other school services be, the line item above?
Other school services,
2 million.
in that category. Hold on, I might need to look it up.
On phone a friend?
Yeah.
You can get back to me tomorrow.
No, I'll have it. I
don't
got
want
it.
to hold up the
Do you know
party
what?
train
I
here.
knew you were going to ask these questions, so I have it ready. What's the account number? Do you know? Is it there?
No, I don't have an account.
Oh.
I just
Oh,
have-
other school services. Oh, no, sorry, I thought you were looking
It's the
at.
line item above.
Yeah, other school services is, just make sure, hold on.
I don't
Just
have a
give
lot of
me-
confidence in this answer.
No, give me 2 seconds. Other school service.
The other stuff, Jeff.
It's the other stuff. The other
So,
$2
you know,
million.
I always get it mixed up with, there's other teaching service, oh, anyway, it doesn't matter, but.
Tomorrow's fine.
No. So other school services is, sorry.
You ever wish you never asked a question, Mr. Chair?
I wish you never asked that
He's
question.
back a page on that from
No,
that
you're all
screen,
on
by
your
the way.
own right
I
here.
know, it's hard.
I will come back to it. I'll come
No,
back
it's
to it.
fine.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
It could be tomorrow by the end of this meeting.
Yeah, if I can
Trying
get it.
to move it along.
Back to the chart of accounts.
Yeah, no, do you know what, it's because we use a slightly different, it's really frustrating, we use a slight, it's not, what I'm normally used to is a different categorization, but this is one that comes from our budget policy, and so it's slightly different. I believe it includes, so it includes like our instructional assistants and other services within the school, but I'm gonna double check and get
Just
back to
double
you.
check. We can talk about that at any other
I will.
time.
All right, moving swiftly on. So this is just some other information that might be helpful, some summary figures on our district enrollment, our staffing, our full-time equivalent staffing. This is all based on our October 1 data, so clearly when it comes to staffing, it's not perfect because it's the staff who are in building at that time, and if you have vacancies or whatnot, it's not exact, but it gives you a nice a moment in time where you can see year to year how it's changing. So we did see some increases from FY21 to 22, largely, as we were coming out of COVID, partly state funded and federal funded through grants, and then we've seen that come down over the last few years. And I've included here the reduction that we've included in this budget is reflected there. And then you'll see our foundation enrollment is changing. So this number is not being finalised quite yet. I'm just working with the state to finalise foundation enrollment for this year. And then we have our, total expenditure. That's all funds, so that includes grants, not just the budget. And then we have the assessments in the bottom corner. So we did just include this. This shows how the assessments have changed over the last few years. So it starts with the total assessment for Harwich in blue. And then once you get to 2023, you then have the Harwich with the new methodology. So that's when we changed the regional agreement so that each town paid first for its elementary school. And so that reduced Harwich's costs because because Chatham Elementary School has so few students, it's a relatively expensive building to run. So when that went all over to Chatham, it reduced Harwich's assessment. And so you can see the comparison. If we had not changed the assessment methodology, Harwich would be still paying the blue line, or be still assessed the blue line if you agreed to it. And the Chatham would still be on this orange line. Instead, we're in this sort of red and grey line. So you can see that year after year, Harwich's assessment might not feel like it, but it is lower than it might otherwise have been had we not changed the regional agreement. So just looking back on our successes as a region. And you can see, and I think it is worth mentioning that Chatham's assessment has, for the last couple of years, without doubt, 5-6 years ago, Chatham's assessment was not going up as much as Harwich's percentage-wise. But in the last few years, especially since we've made that change, it's not quite as high as some of Harwich's increases. It is pretty close to what, in terms of percentage increase, into what Harwich has seen each year, which is different than it was before we made that change.
Eve, where do you want just one quick thing to translate that into English for people who are following budgets?
Yeah, thank you.
What would the Chatham budget in real dollars be as a percentage of the allocation for Harwich be in real dollars?
Say that again?
What is the percentage of the Chatham obligation as compared to the Harwich obligation in real dollars? 20%, 25, 30, 35?
What are these two numbers as a percentage of the
It's hard to
total?
tell with the graph, so it's kind of like asking it in English.
It is. I have that here. So, all right. I want to see it.
In the interest of time, it looks like between 25 and 30, somewhere like 26.5%, somewhere in that area. That's all.
All right, it's around, I can have it here, it says when it's told. 73 to 26, so you said 73.8.
I'm worse than Pete. I
26.2.
actually knew the name of the
Yeah.
conductor on the train.
Yeah, yeah. So they have hovered around 70, 75 to 25, 76, and it's still around there. It's 73.8 to 26.2, which is, So, as I mentioned, so we're still carrying this health insurance increase of 15%. Property insurance, we're now down to a 10% increase. We do have, agreed upon cost of living increases in addition to step increases for all eligible employees. Anyone who's not on a contract gets, not on a collective bargaining agreement gets the same cost of living increase. We have current staffing plus some known retirements and estimated savings from turnover. And then the numbers are kind of highlight, I have a little asterisk next to them, or little items that are going to be updated. So we have our health insurance, school choice and charter school enrollment. So that's numbers we were talking about a moment ago. We'll have updated figures for those. State aid. Fortunately, we do now have the state aid figure, and it is actually a little less than we budgeted in this draft of the budget and assessments and minimum local contribution. So next steps, so presentation to Harwich Select Board didn't happen. We have the governor's budget, which is now out, and we're updating the figures to reflect that. We'll have further meetings with our finance staff, the finance committee, and then next week we'll find out the health insurance rates, which I think are going to be critical, and we will be presented to Chatham, and then we'll have a public hearing of the budget and another vote of the budget by the school committee possibly, and then the final vote of the budget March 12th. We'll have the final number. So that's where we're at right now.
Mark, I do want to caution everybody, unless we want to do a sleepover, that this is the initial presentation and that we have a lot more time than we've had in previous years because the school committee knows where we're coming from as opposed to prior years where we had talked to them like in the end of February. And the FinCom will be more involved earlier on also, so this is just the initial blush here, so.
Just one thing, Mike, I attended the Mass Mutual meeting.
Uh-huh.
And Maya, who
Yeah.
insures quite a few towns around the state, their average health insurance increase was 8.3.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
Changed from 2.9 to 14.4, and they did change some drug coverages.
Yeah.
Just an FYI, because I know you're on the board.
So that's exactly where we're at. And so we had met with the steering committee and we were talking about, also increases of around that plus changing drug coverage. By the way, I have your answer about other school services.
I don't want it anymore.
Oh, come on.
I even forget what he asked.
So other school services. So that includes athletics. It includes medical health services, so nurses and so on, athletics, and other student activities, which includes like after-school activities, like any extracurricular activities.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Scott.
So my plan is here to accept, this is the draft budget, and hand that over to Jen so she can do some more deep diving, but not tonight in real time. And if anybody's got any other thoughts on that, let me know.
Just a question,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. So you had said this is our initial review with the school department. I assume that means you plan on bringing them back in for a little bit more detailed conversation?
Yeah, I mean, that would be our, sorry, you're looking at him. I don't mean to answer it, but yes, our
Don't stare at
expectation would be.
I'll take an answer from anybody, Michael.
Yes, we'll be talking to the finance committee in the next 2 weeks over February vacation. We'll be talking with them. I've shared with our board, the delta between the number that interim town manager is carrying for the school budget and our number, if we try to back into it, is pretty significant. I believe, I think back of the matchbook, $1.55 million. So I've looked at, ways that we can, use some additional reserves, but we can't close a $1.55 million gulf with reserves and just naively think there won't be a cliff the following year. So it's how do you get from here to there? It's already a reduced staff budget. I know that, we're all very cognizant of the fact that, that most of the communities on Cape Cod are gradually losing young families, and we're seeing a gradual reduction in students. So, so this budget has accommodated the loss of students into it already. So we have, I've had conversations with the school committee on, okay, what sort of reorganization do we need to do, or potentially as an administration to go get there, but you can't reorganize the administration and expect to see $1.5 million there. I think ultimately we would have to look at the requests that Michael projected up there, some of which buildings we're hoping would get addressed this past year, that we might have to look at them and say, okay, do we have to move those into a future year? We've talked about, when we look at capital projects that we were going to do we do some of those in the following fiscal year, either those that are sort of facilities or technology related. But again, you don't want to move everything. You don't want to kick the can down the road, because it just creates a cliff, for our two towns a year out. And we don't want to. We want to come up with something that's a blended approach that tries to have something that can be sustainable year after year. But I am probably more concerned than I have been for budgets in the past on how do you go close the gap from where the town manager's draft budget is at this point in the year, and what the draft budget is for level services with the school.
And basically, that's why you're here, because I don't want to scurry about in desperation at the end of this and say, gosh, how do we fix this? But one of my 10 rules of life is make sure that you get good news fast and bad news faster. So if we stay on this, then I assume we're going to have a meeting real shortly.
Right. And the other thing that, again, I emphasized when I was here I think last time, one of the things that we have to keep in mind, and we start sort of yet another round of conversations with our principals on what can we do at each building level, just like we've been having one at central office. What can we do in central office to reduce costs? But we also have to balance. We also have to balance with one of the successes that Monomoy's had, where we've brought the families back. Like they've. The money that we were chasing because it had left the district when we formed and families choosing to go to other districts, and we're just watching money go out the door. We've been able to bring so much of that back, and we want to make sure that whatever we put in place is something that families still look at, that this is a great program. This is where they want to see their children, not be looking at a neighboring school district and saying, okay, that's a better place, for our family. We have to keep that in mind, and how we look at, where we can belt tighten and make sure that it still leaves a quality program for our kids.
So if there's nothing else, then, again, we have an open invitation, and I would rather make that weeks than anything else. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Do we have the legal representatives anywhere?
Yeah, they're out in the hall.
They're out in the hall.
It's punishment.
They only pay half
Did
fee
you
when
give
they-
them the hall pass to
They
be
only
out
pay
there?
half fee when they're way down here.
Why does his voice sound like it's going away?
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Oh,
Good evening.
Hey.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, thank you very much.
Hey, good.
And even better that we didn't get a nor'easter.
We did that just for you.
If you've got the dial-in up there, that's good to know.
We have that power. You just want to introduce yourself to the public.
Absolutely. So you all know me, Michelle Randazzo from KP Law, and this is my colleague Greg Corbo, who I'm not sure you all have had a chance to meet before.
No, we haven't met before. My name is Greg Corbo. I'm also a shareholder at KP Law. I've been there going on 28 years at this point. We thought that with the new town manager coming in, the fact that I've worked with him in both of his previous stops, that it might be a good idea for transition purposes if I came along as well. So, both Michelle and I are going to be sort of sharing the primary contact duties with, me being the primary contact with the new town administrator. But pretty much everything else will stay the same as far as all the people who are doing your work.
And of course, as you can see, we have Amy Questle and Brian Mazur, with whom you're familiar with along. One of the things that, when we originally proposed our team to you folks, right, that was before you had hired Jay McGrail. And so we wanted to, reflect to you folks that we have flexibility to structure a team that meets your needs. And so it's really up to you folks, and I'm sure you're going to consult with Jay when he comes on board as to what his preferences would be. But, we wanted you to have an opportunity to meet Greg and learn a little more about him, and hopefully we can answer any questions that you have.
And Jay has mentioned you.
Oh, thank you. It's been a while since I've done work here in Harwich, but I have done a couple things involving mooring fees. It was like litigation I did a while back, and some of the liquor licensing stuff a few years ago around COVID time, a little bit before then. But I've worked in Brewster, Eastham, Wellfleet. I'm the primary in Truro. I've done work in Provincetown, and I do a lot of the kinds of work that affects the Cape Towns, in a unique way. So I do a lot of work with harbor masters and harbor usage fees and residents versus non-resident fees, things like that. I also work on a lot of water and sewer issues. I'm very familiar with the new requirements of Title V, and pretty much anything else that could come up, I've had some experience in. And so, I think it would be a good fit for me here in Harwich to bring some of that experience that I've had in these other Cape communities and to share that along with you.
And so what is the board's preference? Do you want us to go through our
Yeah,
presentation?
go through that and then
Okay.
questions
so
after.
Is the technology working? Oh, excellent. So, as I said, the proposal that we have before you now is a little different from the written proposal. It would just have Greg as the primary and me as the backup counsel. But Greg and I work together in other communities, and it really is, you can reach out to, either of us. We keep each other in the loop. It's just to provide you with, that added access to someone, because Greg can be on trial, or, I could be in court somewhere or something like that, and just so that you know that you have people that are familiar with your town and your issues. And then
you see the worst picture ever.
Oh, that would be your driver's license.
Yeah.
And so again, no big changes to your current staffing. As you see, you have Amy Questle for land use, and probably 900 million other things, because Amy knows a lot about all the different issues that are land use adjacent. Brian Mazur for labor and employment, who I know that you've worked with some, and I know that Tony has worked with. Tom McEnany for contracts and procurement, and Sharon Everett for real estate. But again, we have depth of bench that we can structure a team that works for you. And here's a little bit about Greg. I don't know if you want to go through it.
Yeah, so here's a little bit of my biography, since you didn't see that in the proposal. As I said earlier, I've been with KP Law for, going on almost 28 years at this point. And my areas of specialty are a lot of different things, but I focus on public health with particular focus on water and sewer issues. A few years ago, I was very involved in PFAS litigation in Eastham, and we were able to, negotiate settlements of all those claims there, and ultimately get them a public water supply, which was a huge accomplishment for them. I work with Provincetown also on water and sewer issues, and I helped them develop their administrative consent orders where, someone has a failed Title V, but sewer might be coming in the near future. And so we've helped them put together these administrative consent orders to get people to put aside money for their eventual sewer connections, so that when sewer does come, it's there available for them. And Truro is now starting to take up that model as well. I've also done, as I said earlier, a number of issues with shellfish licensing and harbor usage fees, and in particular, the disparity between, resident parking fees and non-resident parking fees, and how do you allocate the limited number of spaces that you have when so many people want to be able to use them. And then, I do things on a daily basis, public records, open meeting law, basically any of the kind of day-to-day things that are going to come across the town administrator's desk or that are going to be on your agenda are things that I'm able to provide advice on and that I've had experience in.
And so you folks do know me. I've been before you several times, but, just for background in case you didn't know it, I'm over 30 years as an attorney. I've always worked exclusively in the public sector, almost all of my time at KP Law. So from when I was a baby attorney till now, this is what I do. Like Greg, I do a lot of work on Cape Towns. I'm primary contact for 3 Cape Towns, but there are also towns that I've been working in for, 20 plus years. And that's part of what we try to develop is those long-term relationships with folks so that whenever there's a need for transition, your town council retired, you have, a choice of attorneys that have already established relationships with you. I do all the day-to-day for the towns that I'm primary contact for, open meeting law, public records, all of those things, municipal finance, warrant review, and my specialty is labor and employment, but it's proposed that Brian would tackle that in the first instance, but I too can answer day-to-day labor and employment questions as they arise. We've given you a list of cases that we're happy to talk about any of them, but I don't know that you really want to, but these are just a list of cases that we've done in Harwich. There's a lot of land use going on, and Amy can certainly speak to that if you would like. But these are some of our significant victories in Harwich over the I would say the past 5 to 7 years. Would the board care to talk about any of those? Or they?
Yeah, you will find later on in the meeting that we are trying to completely revamp all of our zoning. There's too many overlays and. As Amy knows, and its thrust is more based on the use that you're going to have. It's irrelevant what the building is going to be, which is backwards. So we're going to try. The gentleman behind you is the chair of the planning board. He's going to put an article in to see if we can get a consultant to deconstruct it and reconstruct it as a form-based code so that people have neighborhoods. So. Amy and I go way back, so I don't, unless the rest of the board needs to hear something in specific, the ground is actually shifting as we speak.
Well, only can go up, right?
I hope so.
And again, just as Greg and I have said, these are just a representative listing of the types of services that we provide. As you know, we do trainings as well at no charge. Our materials have included a list of representative seminars and trainings that we could provide. We really hope that folks, our clients, take advantage of that because that can be a real significant way to help reduce legal costs by providing training on key areas that will hopefully help everybody stay on the straight and narrow and not fall into traps that can result in litigation. And these, again, are just a few examples of the major projects and matters that we've worked on with you specifically: wastewater, different water projects, firearms licensing. Janelle Austin, who's not here tonight with us, but she works very closely with the police chief on a wide variety of manners, including a number of firearms licensing, policy, promulgation, and otherwise. And of course, as you know, pretty bees. Yeah, I know, right? So I'm not one to toot my own horn. I sort of get embarrassed by it, but, you know, we do want to let you know that we have been recognized by our peers and by the legal community as being, you know, tops in our field. Both Greg and Amy have been named top lawyers, Greg in 2024, Amy in 2025, and I'm a super lawyer, whatever that is. You know, I think I'm super, but it's nice to know other people do too as well. And so that's really just the gist of our presentation. We're, you know, can answer any questions that you have.
I'm going to start with one thing because I already talked about it with Amy, and she has actually accommodated me with this, just to get it out in the open. We do have a policy about entry as a gateway. The folks who sit up here have a very strong feeling they got elected, they have the right to jump the line and go to legal counsel. I can't tell them they can't. But we did want to know on the back end, not just through billing, substance of it, because I have a very strong feeling with my own experience going back to GSA and contracting that we're not asking you for an opinion on policy. We're asking you how to be able to achieve a goal legally. And so the only way to be able to identify that is to see who, you know, who's asking what on staff and who may be repetitively asking something that relates to that area so that we can actually address it. Amy has kindly started sending that stuff over, and that would be a huge help to us because it closes a loop. We know who's going in, but we don't know if that's everybody. So, you know, because some of the staff assumes, well, we've always done that. But we would really like to know if there was some excessive use in any area, because that would result in us wanting to train somebody better. They shouldn't be running to our law firm first.
Well, and I think you know, Tony started to put into place a little more rigorous system of getting those sign-offs, and it would be something I think that Greg would talk with Jay and with you folks about how you want to structure it. We can do whatever it is
As long as you understand the construct,
Well, no,
because
I do.
Tony has done what we had asked him to do in terms of policy entry to you guys, but we still need to, as a management tool, know what's coming back to us, and not just through billings, but through a response that actually addresses a question so that we know what kind of questions are going out to you.
Yeah, and, you know, from my perspective, it's very important to have sort of a single point of contact that's coming in to town council for that very reason, so that you know what we're working on, you know, what kinds of advice that we're giving, what people are asking us. And, you know, the last thing in the world that we want is, you know, each of the different departments asking us the same question in a slightly different way to get the answer that they want. You know, we want to help you, as you said, achieve your goals. And the best way to do that is, you know, for us to make sure that you're informed, that the town administrator is informed, and that, you know, if somebody calls us directly, you know, one of the first questions we'll ask is, well, does the town administrator know that you're calling? You know, is the select board aware of this issue, so that, you know, we're not just sort of running off down some tangent that, you know, either you've been down before and, you know, knew the answer to, or, you know, isn't something that you thought was worthy of having pursued at that point. And, you know, what you say also about, you know, it's about giving you legal advice, and, you know, that's the kind of thing that I really feel is one of my stronger suits, is that, you know, it's not just a matter of opening up a law book and saying, this is what the statute says. You know, it's more about what are you trying to achieve here, and how can we help you achieve that goal? And, you know, I say to, like, the younger people all the time, is like, that's how you don't get replaced by AI, is that, you know, you form relationships with people, and, you know, you're able to give them advice, not just tell them what the law says. And I think all of us are very good at that, at listening to what your concerns are, listening to what you want to achieve, and say, well, you know, you may not be able to do it this way, but maybe you could do it this way. And, you know, we always want to give you those types of options, and we never want to be the ones making the decision. You know, that's not what our job is. Our job is to say, this is what you can do within the law, and then it's up to you to decide what to do with that.
And I'll shut up after this, but reciprocally, it has, through the years, especially recently, made me absolutely insane, depending on which lawyer we talk to, we would get different opinions, even contemporaneous opinions. So, not asking for anything tonight, but there needs to be some thought given on your end that whoever answers something, that it's the team that knows what the answer is, not the individual lawyer.
And I think, just to follow up on that, if I could, I'm looking at this as a real opportunity for reset, right? We've had transition on our end with the longtime town council retiring. You've had transition on your end. And, communication is 100% critical to the attorney-client relationship. We all live and breathe that, right? I have some towns where the select board doesn't want to know anything. Everything is filtered through the administrator. And in towns where there's a town manager, that is, the structure. And so, to the extent that you are looking for a different communication thread through us, whether it's to copy the administrator.
No, just a unified one.
Right? It's what you want. Right? We can provide any level of service. Like I said, I have some boards that they don't want to hear from us directly. They would rather have it all filtered through the administrator.
But I am mindful, and everybody here needs to hear this, that you only answer the question as it is posed to you. And oftentimes, there's these minor detail to us that may wind up being a critical juncture to you. So we need to work better about, that too, dig down about what are you really asking.
And I think Greg and I are both good at that, because I do, I was trained in the, because I've worked at KP since I was, in law school, and I was trained to only answer the question asked, but I don't find that to be the most effective way to advise you if I understand that there's another question that's underpinning it. And sometimes just a matter of understanding the background, because a lot of what we do is based on the information that we're given. And that's one of the things I think both Greg and I try to train with the newer attorneys is okay, you don't want to go off on a tangent and respond to issues at the town's dime that they're not asking, but you need to be mindful of how this question fits in big picture.
And on our end, we work together. And so, if I send out an email, Michelle's going to be copied, and vice versa, so that we know what's going on. It's not just, oh, okay, this is a land use issue, so I'm just going to give it to Amy. I stay involved, I stay informed as to what's going on, so that, because we don't want to be in the position either of having you go to different attorneys in the firm and getting different answers based on slightly different variations of the facts. We want to be marching in the same direction as you, along with you. And so on our end, we manage things through the primary contact attorney, so that the primary contact attorney has to be copied on every email, is in, knowing what's going on in the various cases and in the various projects that are happening in town, so that if something comes in, one of us will know, oh, we've seen that before, and this is what we've said. How is it different now? Or, what are they looking for that's different now? And so we organize things on our end that way. Just like on your end, you organize things primarily through the town administrator and through the board, right? So that you have a single point of contact, we have a single point of contact.
And I'll go to Jeff in a second, and that's there's nobody in the room here that I am casting aspersions on, so this is something outside of the current participants here. And B, I understand what you're saying, but that's the value of having any of the elected officials opining, because there's always but did you understand that so-and-so? And that's why we have a multi-member board, because not everybody catches the exact same narrative. So, Jeff.
Good evening, thank you all for being here. I'll just start by saying I've been on this board now almost 3 years, and I have worked with Amy and Michelle enough to know that I would characterize my interactions and experiences with you both as solid. You are responsive, you have been accurate, you have been consistent. Your follow-through, follow-up has been great. I feel comfortable working with the two of you for all the reasons that I just gave. You used the word organized, or I think maybe, I don't know which one. You both used the word organized, and I think that's where our town, as we all are just looking out for the best interest of our townspeople. I might have a little different experience, as we probably all would, than Chair Howell. I find that using that word organized would be a great way for this board and our new town administrator to begin working with your firm, if that's the path we still choose. Consistency of what we ask for. It's not just maybe semantics or a different word that's used, or maybe you just didn't get the gist from me, but another board member but it's the consistency of what we're asking for needs to be first and foremost. And then I think through organized communication, we can do better for you, and then you can do better for us, and then our costs will come down. That's the way I look at it. I look at it as, and Tony came up with right out of the gate, came up with a really great solution that wasn't too difficult to implement. It wasn't a huge lift for anybody, but it gave accountability to all of us and to our staff who use council, so that we all know how we're using you as a firm. So my only question to you all is, you mentioned training, and I think you mentioned no cost. That kind of caught my ear. Can you tell me a little bit about that training? Is it in person? Is it ongoing? Tell me a little bit about it, if you could.
So one of the trainings we do, for example, is open meeting law training. And so one of us would come here, and we would have a PowerPoint presentation that sort of goes through, the text essentially of the law, of the open meeting law, and how it's been interpreted by the Attorney General. But then going a step further and telling you, this is what it means, and this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. And we can tailor that to however you see fit. What I have found works very well is if somebody comes down, say, like late in the afternoon, and then can have a training with the folks who work in town hall, and then earlier in the evening have, essentially the same training, but with the people who are on the volunteer boards, so that everybody kind of gets an opportunity to listen to that. They get to print out the slideshow, and that's something that you have, so that hopefully it leaves you with something that when you go forward and you say, oh yeah, I remember that Greg came down and told us that if we send a message on our private cell phone, it's a public record, so maybe I'm not going to do that this time. So some things like that. And so or it could be something more basic, like there's a new amendment to a statute coming out, and so we'll send you a bulletin that describes what the amendment is and how it affects you. So there's really a range of different types of training that can be, and yes, they are all at no cost to you. That's a service that we provide because we feel like, as town council, our part of our role is to educate you and to make it so that you're not ending up in court, right? If you're not ending up in court on things, I think we're doing a good job.
And just to follow up on that, Janella Austin from our front, she does an annual open meeting law training with the town clerk, sponsored through your town clerk. So we do that on an ongoing basis. As I said in the proposal, there should be a listing of all the different types of commonly requested trainings that we do. I'm going to be doing some in a community where it's more focused on particular employees, and so we've decided we're going to do that via Zoom, but then I'm also going to go out and do a day of trainings with different sessions to reach sort of all of town hall staff. So we can structure whatever makes sense for you in whatever format makes sense for you. I think in our proposal, we set up to 4 a year. We do, sort of try to do them on an annual basis. But I know that if I have a town that hasn't taken advantage of that, free trainings, that I'll kind of say, hey, look, you haven't had any free trainings in a while. Why don't we get some going here and get some done on issues that are important?
Well, thank you. One more, if I could, Mr. Chair. You all have boots on the ground. You see what's coming down the, we'll say for labor, for an example. We'd like to be proactive, I believe, in giving our department heads and our staff the most up-to-date information so they feel protected and they feel that they can do the best that they can for their employees. Are you proactive as well in letting us know what we need to be interested in taking care of or looking out for?
So the most frequent time that comes up is with your land use boards, not
Okay.
necessarily Harwich, but that's where we see it the most, because we can see through the suits that get filed, like where potentially there are flaws in the decision-making. And we offer a training on how to write a defensible decision, for example. If there's personnel issues, and, Brian can speak to this as well, we will suggest to you folks, hey, you may want to think about doing some training for this particular. And I also, and Brian may have done this training as well, but I do a supervisor's 101 training, right? Which has been very well received, and folks will say, I never knew that, right? Because a lot of times your department heads become department heads because they were good workers in their particular arena, but are we giving them the training they need to be effective managers and supervisors in the public sector? So we do.
Thank you.
And we are sort of keeping, we want to be at the forefront, right? This is what we do. And so we're communicating with state agencies and, representatives and things. So for example, like last fall, the legislature passed a bill to enable municipalities to convert beer and wine liquor licenses to all alcoholic beverages licenses. And we put out an advisory that explained, this is what the new statute allows you to do. And if it's something that you're interested in, here is a sample town meeting warrant article that you can use if this is something that you need. So that it took the mystery out of that. And if that was something that people were interested in, it was there, it was at their fingertips, and, we were aware of it. And that's something that we're doing every day, is looking for these things and trying to pass it along to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mark?
Just 2 quick questions. We're going to be renegotiating a agreement with Chatham on our schools on the assessment format. Do you have any experience with that? And second question is, who on your team will handle licensing liquor violations?
So, yes, we have experience with regional school district negotiations. I've done it, I think, Greg, you've probably done it.
Yes.
We've got several attorneys in the office who have been involved in those negotiations, and we're familiar with the process and the contacting dealt with DESI, when you finally get your agreement ironed out, and the approval process that they need. So, yeah, I mean, we've done it, we're familiar with it.
Are you familiar with changes in the assessment formula where you bring in different variables like valuation, income, things like that?
I represent a number of school, not necessarily in towns where we're also town council, but I've worked with regional school districts that have been looking at changes in how they assess. And I'll be honest, usually there's, because especially you folks only have 2 towns, so it's just the 2. Whereas in some of the larger districts where there's multiple towns, there's a lot of prep work and legwork that goes into getting everybody to understand what the different options are. But usually those options are proposed, at the town and the school level. We're here to help you implement what you ultimately agree upon, and we can say, hey, this is what we've seen in the other school districts where we've worked on those contracts, but ultimately you have to make the decision of what's going to fit best for you folks.
And who handles
And
licensing?
So on the licensing side, Jeff Blake has been doing the licensing work. He just had that case up at the appeals court that he was successful in, and so he would continue to do that work, but that is certainly something that I'm familiar with as well. And so if he was not available to handle a particular matter, I would be able to handle that pretty easily.
Thank you.
I don't have anything, thank you.
A couple of questions. Thanks for being here this evening. Yeah, it's getting late. How many attorneys are at your firm in total, roughly?
50? I think we're pushing 50 now.
50?
Mhm.
Okay. And the offices in Boston, is that what I read? You have satellite offices?
We have satellite offices. We have actually one in Hyannis that's available. If, you know, it's on an as-needed basis, but we have a dedicated office there. Some of us work at home, and then other folks go into the, it's really up to what folks want to do, if they would prefer to be in the office in Boston all the time.
Yeah, nice. Approximate number of municipalities and those school districts that you represent?
125.
125?
Yeah, I mean, it fluctuates. You know, I represent a number of housing authorities and regional transit authorities, and those aren't counted on our municipal client listing. But I would say 125 is probably about it.
We typically hover around a third of the communities in the Commonwealth.
Okay, very nice. Only in Mass?
Yes.
Yes.
The, Greg, I think it was you that mentioned about a single point of contact from the town reaching out to council. Do you see that in most communities that you folks represent?
Yes. And the ones that don't have it, when we come in, we try to encourage them to, because it makes the relationship much more effective, because you don't hear different voices coming from different directions, and, you know, it allows you to control your costs, right? If you have one person on your end who knows the questions that are being asked, and one person on our end that knows the questions that are being asked, there's not gonna be repetition. You know, we're gonna know what's going on, and that's gonna ultimately make our experience much more efficient and much more cost-effective for you.
Curious if you know if the town of Middleborough does that.
They do. Yeah.
Thank
Jay and I talk almost every day.
Thank you. Yeah, right. I don't recall if it was in your presentation that you sent to us, so I apologize, but do you folks offer any type of a monthly retainer?
Yes, we did put we put 3 different proposals total. One is the hourly rate structure that you have right now, and then there are 2 alternative fixed fees, which would be a monthly charge, and the size of the monthly charge would sort of depend upon what you wanted encompassed within it, right? So the lower monthly fee would not include any litigation. The higher monthly fee would include litigation up to a certain amount in a particular case. So we're certainly happy to discuss with you folks alternative fee arrangements. We too do not like when things go over budget, right? That's also part of our job, is watching the budget. You can't always control what litigation costs there are, right? But it is something that we, you know, do look at on a regular basis, and there are 3 different proposals. I mean, I can go through the numbers with you, but.
No, again, I just couldn't recall out of the material that I had.
There's 3
but
different
I'll
options
go back to
there,
it.
and, you know, we're open to talking about if you come up with a 4th.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you for that. And if we were, as you know, we put this out there with various categories. If we were to splinter off one of our categories with another firm, I assume you folks deal with that now, where you represent some communities where they utilize separate counsel for X, Y, or Z. How does that work? How do you folks deal with that? How do you see it playing out? I assume there's times you need to almost join forces on a case or at least brainstorming?
Sure, and, you know, we work cooperatively with other counsel, you know, whether it's separate labor counsel or insurance counsel. You know, we're still your town council, and so, you know, it's in our interest to work cooperatively with these other attorneys. We're not in competition with them. They do their thing, we do our thing, but, you know, we stay in communication again so that we know what's going on. You know, that's very important to us.
Okay.
If I could just follow up on that, I find that it's often the town council side that's more trying to chase down folks that are doing segregated services. I mean, obviously, we like our model because we're all in-house, and you're not getting charged twice, by a separate council and town council to have to collaborate. Excuse me. There are a number of towns where I'm handling, excuse me.
Take your time, take your time. It's this room, I swear.
I get all
to
choked
God,
up
it's
at
this
these
room.
meetings too, so.
For different reasons, maybe, Don?
Probably.
But, I would be remiss to not saying that our preference is to do it all in-house because we have the big picture, right? We're able to, because we work collaboratively in-house, we're able to save you the extra step of there having to be that external communication. And, if I come in, for example, I do insurance defense work for any number of communities, and I sometimes have to chase down Labor Council or Town Council to get the information that I need to be able to adequately represent the town. Now, I'm not naming names or casting aspersions, it's just that, when it's all in-house, I can look something up on our computer, right, to see what emails have been sent out or who's in the office is working on a particular topic if it's not already in the top of my mind. There's an added distance that comes from segregating out, but with that said, we have many communities where we're town council and there's separate labor council, and we make it work.
And what would you think the percentage is out of your
It's not a
125?
high percentage. I think most of the towns, and Brian may be, but I think most of the towns where we're town council were also labor council. There is, I would say, probably a couple dozen of towns where we're only labor council and not town council.
Okay.
And we're special counsel in a lot of different places, for one-offs or for projects. So, we serve in those different capacities, so we know how to make it work.
And do you folks typically enter into an agreement, a contract agreement with municipalities, or is it pretty much at will?
It's at will.
Yes, it's at will.
Okay, thank
We
you.
serve at your pleasure.
No, that's what I figured, I just wanted to.
For the public under the exemption of 30B.
Correct, absolutely.
But thank you for that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, and we appreciate it as well. And again, thankful that you dialed up and we didn't have to drive down in a nor'easter. And of course, if you have any other questions, you all know where to find me.
If I really had that authority, I wouldn't be sitting here.
That's why I keep saying, if I had that magic wand, I would be retired on a beach somewhere.
There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. It was nice to meet you,
Appreciate the
everyone.
time.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Well, here's a conversation that's likely to get me fried whichever direction I go in, but I would like to at least entertain the notion of not sleeping over tonight. We have at least an hour's worth of meeting left, and we're already posted for Wednesday. The question is, can we do a few things now and finish up on Wednesday, or do you want to slog through all the night? I put that out to everyone. Because there's a lot to do, and it's one of the things that I am not going to let slide to Wednesday is the Cape Cod Commission letter. So I definitely want to have that discussion tonight.
I won't be here on Wednesday, so I'm happy to defer anything until Wednesday.
How did I know? And we could still do a few more things tonight under that comment, but there's a lot still to happen.
Could contracts get just moved to the next Monday? Or is anything time pressing on contracts?
I was looking at a couple of things. Well, certainly the closures can't, because one of them has already happened.
So for the contracts, Amy Uzowski is online. She's been waiting since 6:30 for the Horsley Witten contract, so I'm sure she would love to get that one done if we can.
And we've been waiting since 5:15.
I think I would say we keep pressing on.
Okay.
A couple of these things are really quick. I think we need to make a decision on the beach sticker fees, and John Harker's here. We have a pretty time-sensitive, important potential
But
capital
we're going to hold you
project.
to the over-under.
What's that?
We're going to hold you to the over-under.
Yeah. We'll keep it to 1 hour or less.
Okay. Beach stickers.
Some of this you've already seen before, so I think.
Yes, so we're not interested in the history of the tide coming in and going out.
I think, Eric, just, fill the board in on just an overview of the recommendation and your discussion with the rec committee, because that was really they held the public hearing on this
Yes,
one.
and yeah, I was going to say, since I presented last month, the Rec Commission did hold a public hearing on January 20th. We did not receive any visitors, but the commission did discuss, and they voted unanimously to support the increases that I brought before you a month ago, with the one inclusion of the raising of the daily pass rate from $20 to $30. So just in conclusion, the recommendation from them was daily passes from $20 to $30, resident beach sticker from $30 to $35, 1 week sticker from $65 to $75, 2 week sticker from $125 to $140, and non-resident season sticker from $150 to $175. This brings us right in the range for most of those. There's still some room to grow with some of them as well. And we anticipate potential revenue of up to $100,000 additional from these increases. So that was.
Chair.
Yes.
I move that we accept the recommendations presented tonight.
As outlined in our packet.
As outlined in our packet, and as presented by the Rec and Youth Director.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, my only point, in the packet, it doesn't outline the $10 increase in the daily pass.
So as presented.
With the exception of the $10 increase.
May I just ask a question? Non-resident, does that mean if you own a summer cottage down here, are you still considered?
You could still get a resident sticker.
What about renters
Renters,
that are here year-round? Can they bring like an excise tax bill that will?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was waiting for either you or Pete to actually dive in
An
there.
opportunity.
Update on town meeting and budget timelines.
Okay, so we're hitting a couple of important milestones here coming up. We'll see the board's desire about sending the FY '27 operating budget and the FY '27 to '31 capital plan to the Finance Committee. I know we have a couple of things that we wanted to address based from our last meeting, a couple of questions that Mr. Kelleher had, or Select Board Member Kelleher had. The Finance Committee is holding their public hearing on the capital plan next week. And then right now, we're still in the process of assimilating all the warrant articles. The final language for those are due by February the 13th. And so we'll be, presenting those over the course of the next few weeks. So the only thing new in the draft tracker right now is a couple items in yellow that are added from last week's meeting. So nothing huge as it relates to that. So everything's still on track at this point.
And knowing how this should work and how it has not worked in the recent past, when would you anticipate us sending this over? Because FinCom's going to have to parse it out.
You talking about the budget?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the schedule that I had built was for the board to vote to transfer the budget and the capital plan to the capital committee this evening, if you
That's
choose
what
to
I'm
do
looking
so.
for. Okay.
Yeah, it's due to them, I think, based on the charter at the end of February. So we're, obviously a couple weeks ahead of that, which is what we tried to do. So, but it's all
But you
in the
will not
board's
be here
comfort level.
during that period of time, so it would be very important for us to move this forward.
Yeah, assuming we've asked and answered any questions that the board has, then we just need to discuss, when we get to it, how we're going to take the information and munis from the town administrator's recommendation over to the select board. There's a couple items I need to talk with the board about when we get to that, just to make sure what we hand them is what the board, voted on, so.
You want to go on, or?
Yeah, so let's keep moving forward. Under new business, a couple of these we can recommend moving to another Monday agenda. They're not time critical. So right now, we're requesting the board take a vote on a letter of support for the fiscal year 2026 housing rehab program. So that's a regional program that's managed out of the town of Truro, that we are a beneficiary of that work and helping, I'll say, low to moderate income residents in Harwich, East Hampshire, and Provincetown through a grant program related to housing rehabs and other support for those folks. So Natasha was kind enough to draft this up. It's the same as it was last year for the
Chair.
board.
I move that we send a letter of support for the fiscal year of 2026 housing rehab program.
Second.
Okay, I see where this is going. Any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Mr.
opposed?
Chair, if I may be so bold to see if we can get Amy Uzowski out of here and maybe look at that contract A and approve it so she can.
Sure, and I was actually going to say to you, we can put off the Affordable Housing Trust actions. There was nothing really into that, other than we'd like to make sure that we get periodic reports
Absolutely.
as our member there.
Yep.
Okay, Amy?
Good evening, everybody. I would greatly appreciate you awarding the contract to the Horsley Witten Group in the amount of $142,065. And this is a CPC article funded from last year for the design and permitting of a raised boardwalk on North Road within the Bell's Neck Conservation Area.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a contract with the Horsley Witten Group for the design and permitting of a raised boardwalk on North Road in the Bell's Neck Conservation Area in the amount of $142,065.
Second.
Moved and seconded, by the way, that would be truly amazing.
Quick question to Amy. Amy, is that the location of the terrible flooding on North Road?
It is north of there, but just so you're aware, I will be discussing with our DPW director potential grant opportunity to look at that issue that is a little bit farther south. This is all the way north on North Road before you hit the footbridge.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the contract of Horsley Witten Group. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy, appreciate it.
Okay, so the next item is a request to authorize myself as the acting town administrator to sign a traffic control agreement. This is related to the safe routes to school.
Oh, no, it isn't. We need to vote to authorize the acting town administrator to hire a special labor counsel to deal with an emerging personnel matter.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Sorry about that.
I've done that before.
I know you have. So related to the Safe Routes to School program, the MassDOT requires that we sign what's called a traffic control for safety improvement project, and requesting the board to authorize me to sign that. If you look through the agreement, most of it's related to ensuring that we meet signage requirements in the area that the Safe Routes to School program is addressing. So you'll see stop signs in there, pedestrian crossings, speed limit signs. This has all been reviewed by DPW and Public Safety, so they have no issues with what the requirements would be. So in an effort to get the funding, they, put those requirements onto the town to make sure we have the appropriate markings in the road and appropriate signage.
Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize the town administrator to sign traffic control agreement between the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and the town of Harwich regarding the safety improvement project relative to the Safe Route to School project at South Main Street, and Sisson Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'm not going to repeat that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Discussion on the appointment of Town of Harwich representatives to the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group.
Okay, so as you heard Mr. McMillan mention today, there's an important vote coming up next week from Municipal Health Group. We want to make sure that Harwich has a vote in that process for the health insurance program for the next fiscal year. We used a template that was used previously signed by Mr. Powers. So requesting the board authorize me to sign this letter with the board appointing Finance Director Jennifer Mintz as our primary representative, and the alternate being Human Resources Generalist Angelique McGibbon.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Make designated persons representatives on the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in
Don't let
favor?
her say no.
What?
Don't let her say no. Quick, take the vote.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, we recommend that we push the discussion on the purchasing car policy to the next meeting.
Thank God.
So Mr. Pikarski can study it a little more.
Mr. Pikarski's not the only one.
But skipped everything else and just done that.
I know.
I'll be more ready next time. It's all good.
All right, two temporary closure requests. One is timely, I'll explain the second one. But, first one is George's Pizza House.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a temporary closure for George's Pizza House, 564 Route 28, closing February 23rd, 2026, reopening on March 19th, 2026, alternate reopening date of March 17th, 2026.
Second.
Yeah, sooner doesn't necessarily bother me. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, Brack's, there's a reason for that. Everything got torn up and moved around, and he's got some real problems in reconstructing things, so he met up against the deadline, but it's not really something that he consciously wanted to do. So with that,
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a temporary closure for Brax, 705 Route 28, closing February 1, 2026, and reopening on March 1st, 2026.
Second.
moved and seconded to approve the Brack's request for closing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Before we move to old business, I want to make the comment that we do have a situation with Ember, again, second year, and Jen has sent them a notification relative to that, where they just simply in the beginning of the month of January decided they were going to close and they weren't going to tell anybody.
Yeah, Jen was able to reach out to one of the owners. They said they sent a letter to the town, so we're trying to, I think, track the actual letter down, but.
Do they have a copy of this letter?
Well, that's what we're trying to track down. He was yes, he was traveling, but we don't have it yet. So apparently it was sent, was it in December?
They claim that they sent it in December via USPS.
We didn't receive it.
Our office has no record of receipt.
I'm sure, but at some point, we're going to have that discussion, because last year I took up at least 3 paragraphs of the minutes saying that this last time it's going to entertain a backward request.
They will be before you next week.
Okay.
With their closure request.
Just wanted to let everybody know, because we have never approved their closure this year. All right, old business, discussion and review of the proposed fiscal 27 to 2031 capital plan.
So before we get into the next couple, because those could take a little bit of time, you had mentioned earlier, I don't know if you wanted to discuss the Christie Senatorial letter now and.
Yeah, I would, because this isn't going to be what everybody's thinking it's going to be. It really isn't a discussion about, well, it came back to you again. This was a well-measured letter request for them, because now we have Christie Senatori in writing stating that the state never conveyed the authority for 40B reviews to the Cape Cod Commission. It's not that we're discussing it coming back to us. I can say, as being a part of a provider for many years myself, the money to do small-scale neighborhood affordable housing has completely dried up from the state. The applicant for the current project was playing with the rules that were presented to them by the state. Regardless of how you feel about it, this is going to replicate itself over and over. All you have to do is drive around the Cape. I don't know that anyone was in for this. Anyone. The large scale of some of these things would give one some suspicion that we're warehousing cheap labor for expensive people to get services that they weren't heretofore able to get. They're certainly not being integrated into neighborhoods. So with that, we expect to do something further with this and start going towards the state to say, what are you doing and why are you doing it? Because this is insane. It's being inferred upon us as a set of rules that we did not have originally. And eventually, all of these new zoning recommendations, seasonal communities, all of them come with a string attached that says how we are going to zone. Every one of them. And they're pushing us to actually accept them without even knowing what we're committing to. So that's totally insane, too. We don't have control over our own neighborhoods. That's totally beyond the pale. You'll have a moment. I'm on a roll now. The 2 bigger issues here is, why is the state putting its thumb on the scales about what it wants? Because it is certainly not about anything that we want. As a matter of fact, it's extremely consumptive, I think we could all agree on that, of open space property, the things that weren't built that are now going to be built in large scale. Like the project that I know you're upset about has 240 some odd rooms in it. It's not that project. This is going to replicate itself over and over. It has nothing to do with communities anymore. It has everything to do with reaching a numeric goal. Secondarily, that's not the only thing that's been going on here, and Mr. Berry is here to address that. We are increasingly being held hostage by a written page that tells us what should be built everywhere. Things that we never anticipated were ever going to happen are starting to happen, and people are being more aggressive in their asks for those. So the town, not just of Harwich, but all of Cape Cod, is going to look like a vastly different place unless we have a discussion about what do we want to do? Who are we trying to help? What part of the community does that integrate into? Because I, for one, grew up in an area that was an affordable housing area. No one thought they were poor, because we were all part of a larger neighborhood. That's not what's going on here. All you got to do is go to the end of Willow Street and see what's going on here. And that is part of the whole tapestry that's going on Cape-wide and basically statewide. So what we want to do with that information is another story that's going to be on another agenda, and certainly allow people to talk to this. But the reality of this is it was specifically designed to get an answer that I knew we were going to get. Can't do it, we're not allowed. Which is, I think people needed to see that in writing. It's the executive director of the Cape Cod Commission that said that, and she's correct. They were not conveyed the authority, and that's where the problem is. It keeps going up a level. So either one of you can form a queue.
Pam Kendall, 86 Old Chatham Road, and I do hear your frustration as well with this situation. A large part of my frustration is when this project was first presented and the POV did their traffic study. I came to the Board of Select of Harwich, and I went on the record stating that the POV traffic study had a lot of inaccuracies, to include the death of my husband. It has not been addressed. An amendment could have been made. That is not the only inaccuracy on the POV's traffic study. And I'm asking right now why the Harwich Board of Select has never made the amendment. First and foremost, it's inaccurate. Secondly, it's disrespectful. And it's not letting the Harwich residents be heard.
I'm not going to get into a back and forth with this, but I am going to say, A, we don't have the authority to instruct the Zoning Board of Appeals what they can and can't do, because they're the regulatory body in charge, not us. But B, it's embodied in the local comprehensive plan. It's drafted right now that we need, I agree with you, because they were inaccurate about even the speed limit.
Yes, they were.
And the size of the road. I mean, there's all kinds of rumors going on about how the state's going to come in and widen the road. That's not happening either. But I am sorely disappointed in any study that tells you, yep, you got a problem, and then walks away. So we have it on our radar screen to get back to a study that not only says what's wrong, but what do you recommend to change
Imagine
that?
if it was your child and the date of death was incorrect on that traffic study report. I want you to tell me how you would feel.
Since mine almost got flattened a few years ago at a school bus stop.
Oh, my husband's
on Queen
dead.
Anne Road.
And you're well aware of it. And when I brought it to the attention of the Harwich Board of Select and went on record during a meeting, it could have been very easily fact-checked with the Harwich Town records, seeing whereas he was a lifelong Harwich resident.
I get that,
And the board, the Harwich, Town of Harwich failed to do that. So yeah, that's where I'm a little bit upset for that. It wasn't the only inaccuracy in the report. I can assure you, I had the accident reconstruction done myself on my husband's accident, and the schematics do not match any of what the POV traffic study is. Yet, That traffic study report was accepted. I'd like to know why.
We made the same questions that you were saying when they came in to present.
Did you accept the traffic study report?
It isn't ours to accept. It was part of the.
Okay, we'll go a little bit
Part of the
further.
compendium of information that has to be adjudicated by the ZBA. We pick the people who sit on it. They have guidelines that they have to adhere to. They held their hearing, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus because.
Mr. Howell, I can assure you, I attended that meeting and held up the signs as well. And you know I did.
I know you did.
So it's still on the town of Harwich. We'll go further. As far as the comprehensive permitting process, it is a procedural role. I would think that the Cape Cod Commission, it's an independent regional responsibility under how does?
It was created by law, and the state
All right,
did
well,
not give them the authority.
I'm kind of curious as to how our town attorney is interpreting all of this with them throwing this back onto the
There's nothing to interpret. They don't have any jurisdiction.
All right, so there's no opinion about the regional impact that's going on unchecked development?
That's why we sent the letter.
Long-term?
But you do recognize that we're going to have a follow-on discussion about this. It's going to be more in-depth about what to do from here on.
I really hope so. I do, because I can tell you, it's not good. Them not having to conform with the 40B, to even conform completely to the same wind codes that regular builders have to conform to, and getting waivers is unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable, and it puts all of the residents around these projects at a risk. And
I'm not only not disputing that, but that is it's baked into the cake of 40B. That's why we need a bigger discussion.
I understand that. And we look, as Harwich residents, we look to the Board of Select to represent us. And I can tell you, I certainly haven't been represented, and neither has my husband, as well as a lot of other Harwich resident voters. Thank you.
Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Administrator Scalvi, Matt Sutphin. Just a little follow-up on your comment that a lot of 40B is out of the town hands and being pushed on us by Boston and hedge funds and banks. I accept that, but I don't want the board, to my opinion, to think that we can't do something about it. We have the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust, which advances the benefits of 40Bs. We have several committee members and commission members on different boards in town that have advanced the benefits of 40Bs. So I did not want to leave the room without pointing out that we need to look at ourselves as well as look at Boston. And I thank you for that.
Again, online, we are going to have a follow-on discussion about this, but we are not going to change the world at 9:25.
Mr. Chair, I'll add one thing, if I may, and I've done a little bit of work on this, and not only is it the state, but in the Cape Cod Commissions Act on page 12, and I'm trying to find it right now, I identified it earlier, last week. There is language in the Cape Cod Commissions Act that states local board for the Chapter 40B purposes will be considered a local board. So it's not just the state. It's actually buried in the Cape Cod Commissions Act. And I know I don't want to litigate this now. I'm going to bring it up at another time when I have all my ducks in a row here. But it's not just the state. The Cape Cod Commission states it in their paperwork from their inception.
And they did do a technical review, but that's not what I'm looking at because
Understood.
That's punting.
Well, I agree with you 100%. That's all I have.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no, I'll do a little more work, we'll bring it up next time.
And by the way, it's not just the regulation, because it has to do with the money, because you need to follow the money. The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities and MHP lend money, and I can tell you that Hesh has been trying for years to try to get 2 simple quads, 8 units, put into a neighborhood, and there's absolutely no money for that, because they want to do large-scale warehousing.
And speaking of money, I know where we could save about $293,000 on our expense line at this town, and maybe not pay the Cape Cod Commission its fee. I know that's not, that's a
Second.
pipe dream. That's a pipe dream, but someone's got to stand up, maybe the whole,
I suspect, that's why the letter exists. I suspect
and
there's
I'm-
going to be a number of commissioners that are also going to be supportive of what we're trying to do, because this has to get beyond the bridge. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, let's see, next up, John, Stephanie, if you can come on up. So we had a couple of questions, 2 meetings, well, actually, we canceled one. So the last time we talked about this, Mr. Keller had a couple of questions, so I thought it beneficial to ask John and Stephanie to come in. And really, I think to sort of better inform the board about the requirements that are behind the request that we're talking about. So one is the vehicle for DNR, and then a question on 2 of the vessels that the harbor master had in the capital plan that was forwarded from the capital committee to the board. So Stephanie, why don't you go first, since you got the truck, but I think, talk about the requirements. I think one of the questions Mr. Keller had, maybe to just a little bit more define not only the role and the use of the vehicle, but also in your role as an assistant harbor master, which I think sometimes isn't necessarily as forward, visible to a lot of folks that you also, assist in that area too.
And before you go, it's wrapped into, is there a sense of immediacy that it has to happen this year, or can it wait a year? That was all part of the discussion he was asking. So
Yes, there is. I hope you're not disappointed that I waited 3 hours to tell you that I'm
the tide
replacing
has
an
both come in
F-150
and going back out.
with an
during one-
F-150. Shocking. So the capital request is to replace the current vehicle, which is a 2008 Ford F-150. It has just under 230,000 miles on it, so I think the justification for the urgency, immediacy for replacing that vehicle is justified by mileage alone. The additional capacities in which I serve, as Tony mentioned, is not just as Director of Natural Resources, but there are a number of titles that come under that. Shellfish, Assistant Harbor Master, and in that capacity, also, there's an element of emergency response. So there are a number of emergencies, even this past season, we responded to several nights. Sunday nights were really popular, but we do, part of the additional expense in the vehicle, I know Select Member Kelleher was interested in that, is why does it cost a little bit more than just the vehicle? So for both Harbor Master and Department of Natural Resources, since we are responding to emergencies on the water, our vehicles are equipped with radios so we can communicate with members of the fire department as part of our emergency response for the town of Harwich. It's one of the services, obviously, that we provide in that capacity. Also equipped with emergency lights on those vehicles. For this particular truck, obviously, just in addition to those emergency services, just the general DNR work, and have a lot of equipment and a lot of things that are dripping with salt water that would probably be best for the preservation and long-term use of the vehicles, not to be putting in the back of an SUV.
How about towing? Do you tow any boats or trailers?
So towing capability is important. We do share some assets, but would like to be able to use. We have some regional assets even. There's like a $15,000 piece of equipment that I really don't want to buy that we do have access to regionally for shellfish sorting, which is super efficient, but it's something that's on a trailer that needs to be towed. Also just for, again, shellfish, assistant harbor master duties need to be able to trailer a vessel and be able to utilize the boat ramps for just our regular day-to-day duties.
Speaking about the vehicles, I brought that up because on your reason for it, for the vehicle, is because we're a green community and we have to meet the decarbonization. requirements. I guess the question I would have is, if that's the reason to replace the trucks that you have, we have 5 or 6 vehicles out there, will that also apply to those vehicles as well?
Yeah, I think what she was trying to get across is historically, they've been given hand-me-down vehicles, right? The vehicle she has, it's become a safety issue, really. I mean, it's at the end of its useful life. I mean, the vehicles out here are all assigned, right? I mean, the building department uses them, the inspectors use them. So it's not like we can take one from here, we'd have to replace one here, right? So they all get used regularly by, all the departments. Health uses them, building uses them a lot, and others. So, I mean, they're all assigned, so we don't have extra vehicles. And again, given the role that they have, it needs to be a vehicle that meets their requirements, right? I mean, these are, they're not pickup trucks and all the other kind of stuff. And like she said, when you're hauling gear, you don't want to be putting that stuff in the back of an SUV. It needs to be in the back of a truck, but they also tow boats and they tow trailers and they do all of that. So the questions are great, but I think, at the end of the day, we're trying to meet, mission requirements that they have. And this truck, should last 10, 15 years potentially, just like the other one. But the Green Communities thing was more, they were getting, hand-me-down police vehicles or other public, those are exempt. And that's what we can't do anymore. We can't transition public safety vehicles that are exempt down to non-exempt departments. That's where we take black marks from the Green Communities, which we just did recently because we did it at some point, and it showed up on the report. You do that too many times, you run the risk of, putting in jeopardy requests for grant funding when they look at, it's competitive. They say, well, gee, the people in Harwich are not really following through. They're not really, taking the Green Communities thing seriously and how they're, administering the program. So we don't want to necessarily jeopardize that. There's a lot of unintended consequences, like Chair Howell mentioned, with some other things that we sign up for them, and we don't always think what's the second and third order effect that we have to deal with. So I guess the only saving grace on the public safety vehicles, when we turn them in, we turn them in for trade-in value, which at least we get something back from those. But that's really why that was put in there. That's not really the rationale, but it's the rationale of how we had been doing business with them and giving them hand-me-downs, so.
And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole now, it's 9:33, but, and I understand what the Green Communities Act requires, or the prohibition of hand-me-down vehicles. However, I think we could argue that in some cases because, and I'm not talking this particular vehicle for the Natural Resource Officer, but if you're replacing a 2008 with a 2020, your emissions are going to be better. So the argument is false, that it's not a better vehicle than what we're decommissioning. So I think we have a leg to stand on if we wanted to, but again, now it's 9:34, I already wasted a minute. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think your previous one was was a public safety vehicle, right? The one you have now?
Been through, I think, 3 different departments, and
Okay.
I believe at one point it was under the police department.
And they don't have too many pickup trucks.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's,
and again,
that's
I'm
a
not
whole
talking
other-
about the pickup
yeah.
for this department. I agree
Right.
with this purchase. I'm just saying, in general, with those vehicles out there, if there's 2010s out there, a 2020 is gonna have better emissions than a 2010.
Yeah, and the vehicles are still compliant with green community standards, with the mileage, like you said, because they are.
For the
your
non-exempt
and
vehicles.
I know John's worked closely with Kyle, with the vehicle maintenance department, to determine that the trucks would still fit into those guidelines.
I just have one more question. On most capital items, we start off from 5 years before. For example, the DPW has, from 5 years ago, a request in to build a new building. All of a sudden, this year, we had these requests. And that concerned me, because most of the other town departments put in their requests years ahead of time, and they work it down and spec it out. This year, we got 2 new vehicles and 2 new boats, without really any prior notice. Now, John, I've spoken to you. I have to say, for safety reasons, I wouldn't object to your boats, but the sequence should be, if you have a large capital item coming up, it shouldn't be just sprung on that year you need it. Back it up 2 or 3 years so the Capital Outlay Committee can go over it, we can go over it, so it's all vetted out. That was that was the major concern I had. It came up just this last year, and we have over $700,000 or $800,000 in requests between the boats, $500,000, and the vehicles, another 160,000. So that was my concern.
If you wouldn't mind.
No, of course.
Can I get involved in this? Go ahead.
Yeah, two things. You know, I did have a chance when I first came in, you know, it's only been since March 31st last year, to kind of look at what the capital plan looks like, what the new needs are going to be, especially the larger infrastructure things, as we did a kind of a relook at Saquatucket Harbor Bulkhead, for instance. And when I looked at the 5-year plan, what I tried not to do, and I spoke with Tony, was to not have too many peaks and valleys and look at when it would be best to kind of inject things, when things would move, how Allen Harbor shifted a little bit, how Herring River needed to stay, because it's kind of weaved into other parts of the projects that are going to be happening down there with the water and the sewage and the HDD that's going to happen in the parking lot, and all these different things. And so I did see that first year an opportunity where it was at a lower amount, so we weren't going to compound it on other years, like where we're going to have the Allen Harbor Jetty that could be upwards of $3.6 million. But also, I think what I'm doing is what I should be doing. You know, I came on board and I assessed the needs. I leveled the importance and severity of things. I looked at the variety of assets and personnel and missions that we had to do. And through that assessment and through my experience in working along the other side, you know, harbor masters, whether that was training them in my last capacity in the Coast Guard or just working alongside them doing things, I really saw that these recommendations were to be kind of an improvement on the department and the requirements that we'll need. And if you really look at it, let's take the boat for an example. This isn't any dissimilar of what the last harbor master did as well. I mean, he came on board in 2012. He did the same thing. He looked at the missions, he looked at the assets. He took, for example, the asset of the vessel that we had at that point. And if you remember correctly, in 2013 at town meeting, he proposed the Eastern. And so when I look at the vessels, and if you look back at what the prior harbor master did, he looked at the industry standard. He looked at what was around in the different harbor masters and what they were using as utilities, and said, this is what the town needs. This is not what we have right now. And that's the assessment. That's our job in our first year. And so I'm doing the same thing. You know, I'm looking at, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. I'll give you an example. The other day we had an instance at Red River on the 18th of December. And I wrote to you and we talked about vehicles and how I said that's our toolbox. It has all of our tools. It does different things. It does marine mammal rescues. It does sometimes recoveries. We do infrastructure repairs. We do search and rescue. And on that day, we had a distress call of a lady drowning off of Red River in her kayak. And I deployed the boat to go out and kind of go from the water side. And I jumped in one of our department vehicles and I drove down there and I got to the beach and I had all my tools in there because it was the right vehicle and I had the right equipment. It was at that point kind of equipped with everything I needed. And I ran down to the beach, had my radio, life jacket, rescue gear, first aid, first responder kit, life throwing bag, threw it to her, brought her into the beach. We performed our rescue and that was it. So those are the kind of things, these are the toolboxes that we have to have. And I'm doing exactly what I think I should be doing.
Mr. Chair, if I can too. I mean, I come from a department where I was the foreman of natural resources, under which there's harbor master structured a little bit differently. And what our harbor master is requesting is the industry standard. Fully support it, you know, as an assistant harbor master, but also with the industry knowledge and with respect to John's Coast Guard, very extensive Coast Guard experience and knowledge of industry standards and safety. And he's really put together quite the program with the fire department as well and really enhanced our capacity for service for the town and its residents and community members.
And I will note about the vessel as well, and I sent you or I handed you the specs at the meeting to kind of explain. If you look to the east, the west, the north, the south to the islands, I mean, this is the same proposed vessel that everyone else is using. It's the industry standard. It's just unique in that I've combined two vessel needs into one and had this company design a vessel that will do pump out facility work along with all their multi-mission requirements that we have.
You're done.
Thank you. Matt Sutphin. I'm sure I'm not helpful to the petitioners here because I'm kind of a eat it up, wear it out, make it do or do without kind of guy. But I will state that my last two boats I've owned were built in the 1930s. So part of managing a boat is not buying it off the shelf new. It's maintaining it on an ongoing basis. And I'm confident with the experiences I've had with the former harbor master that he left those boats in excellent shape. So maybe they're just not quite right, given the standard that other towns have brought along. But given the schedule for the school, given the schedule for sewers, given the fact that it is not in the schedule as other expenditures would be, that $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 this year could be much better spent somewhere else. I respect the harbor master wanting to do his best. We always shouldn't ask for anything but the best. Sometimes it's just not the right time to part with the dough, and I think this would be one of those years. Thank you.
Okay, so we are where we're at. We at the point of sending that over to FinCom then, or?
Yeah, but before we do that, we have two things to discuss. One for the harbor master, and then we need to hear from Duncan, because those are insertions into the capital plan that the board would need to vote on before sending it over. So if I can just give John, I'm going to give a very brief snapshot. So last May, there was significant damage to which dock?
The west dock, or excuse me, the east dock.
So that's where the ferry goes, right? The commercial fishing vessels are there. And through May and June, John, working with the prior administration, were preparing to do an emergency procurement to essentially fix the problem, which was created by those big boats churning up silt underneath and it building up against the bulkhead and eventually damaged the dock significantly and is a big deal, right? However, the problem was that the funding profile that the administration tried to put together once Jen and I got a chance to look at, frankly, was not legal. For a number of reasons. And we got all the way into the fall because of the length of time to do the permitting and all of that. So to make a long story short, everything was teed up to do this dredging at the bulkhead to prevent further damage and continued buildup. But because of the funding wasn't available the way the administration had originally put it together, it really needs to go into the capital plan for funding. So if you looked at the letter that was provided in the packet, the funding source was going to be half from the 1626 Waterways and Maintenance Fund, and then $175,000 coming out of most likely some repurposed legacy articles. So we've done another deep dive. Jen has another deep dive. And right now, we've looked to free up somewhere in the neighborhood of just over $500,000 in legacy capital projects and other sources to help fund this and potentially what you'll hear from Duncan Berry here in a minute. So, but it didn't end up on the capital plan because it was already in the works as an emergency procurement, if you will, last year, but we couldn't get it done with the funding profile that was proposed for legality reasons. So the request tonight is to insert this project into the capital plan to be funded, because if we don't do it, we run the risk of potentially affecting ferry service, which would not be good, and the commercial fishing vessels,
Charter,
and
yeah.
the charter boats that are along that side of the harbor and the dock. So,
Yeah, I'd like to layer on to that because it's more complex than you represent. The Freedom Ferry, that was a serendipitous thought. There happened to be something that was open in Nantucket that allowed to have the service. If somehow we shoot ourselves in the foot and it doesn't have a place to berth here, I would suspect they're going to start letting that go to somebody else in Nantucket, which would mean we would not have a ferry at all. because that was the construct. It just happened to be available at the moment that we had the ability to have a boat that would go both ways. So,
What would be the motion, what would the motion be to get this going, Tony?
to add,
So I think would be, yeah, the board would vote to insert the Saquatucket Harbor Bulkhead Maintenance Dredging Project into the FY '27 capital plan and capital budget.
So moved.
Second.
okay, moving to second discussion.
Just curious if the conversation's been had with the capital outlay committee.
I let Martha know we were gonna be talking about this. I don't know if she actually looked at the packet. Certainly in other towns I've worked in, sometimes the board will refer it back to them. I think, again, this was an approved project. I think because of its immediacy, this is really the solution to it. I mean, because if we don't do it, it's really gonna be a huge issue. But I did let her know that this was coming up on the board's agenda. I just didn't have a chance to talk to her on the phone.
And, sorry. Go
Just
ahead,
one
Will.
last question. How much is the cost for the dredging in that area?
So right now, we're looking at $350,000. We actually already bid it out. We were getting ready to sign a contract when we discovered, like, okay, how is this funding source working? And it just wasn't doable. It wasn't legal the way that it was originally structured. They tried using some old article money, but those articles had expiration dates on them, which is a big learning point for us when we do capital articles, especially things like dredging and other things like that. We don't want to put time limits on it so that the money remains available. One was only for a period of 5 years, and so that money has been sitting out there since, I think, 2012, but has been expired since 2017 that we couldn't use it. So we have to be careful when we create articles that we read through them and make sure that they don't, propose any unintended consequences down the road. And then the other one was only good for one fiscal year. Again, it wasn't constructed in the most advantageous way for the purpose of which the article was brought to town meeting, so.
Or we evaluate the time frame.
Yeah, well, like I said, for
It
things
depends
like
on the
that.
article. I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
but we always have control over it, even if it's open-ended, so.
And before we vote, another reason to be grateful that we have Jen on board, because
Don.
she does notice details, and that's terrific.
Quick question. The 300, I'm just doing the math here. The $350,000, the funding source for that is past articles.
Half of it, so half of it's
Sweeps.
coming from 1626.
1626, and then the 175 is coming from?
Some of the proposed articles, we haven't figured out which ones we're taking it from yet, but that's the plan.
There's several, yeah.
Okay, the motion was to include it.
Mhm.
So any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Let us know what sunrise looks like.
Okay, so now we have Duncan Berry wants to,
Who has hung in there this whole time.
My pleasure. I'd like to hear about some herring from Stephanie if she wants to talk about some herring.
it's coming up next week.
Okay, good.
No, 2 weeks.
Sorry, Duncan.
No problem. If you guys don't hear it enough, thank you. This is amazing, what you guys are doing tonight. Just props,
Duncan, congratulations, Grandpa.
The second item
Yes,
was
congratulations.
greetings from the youngest and newest resident of Harwich, effective on Friday, about 1:45 a.m. My grandson, William Formicella, is here.
Your first comment was a little premature because no good deed goes unpunished here.
Oh, well, what does that mean?
You'll find out.
You haven't even heard what I have to say, so. I'm assuming that everything that was said back on December 22nd is in effect, so I won't explain anything. I was asked to come and price out what you wanted to hear. And so, unlike the procurement process that I was involved with in various parts of the town over the years, including most recently Brooks Academy, where you basically look at RFPs and look at and compare pricing mechanisms, in this particular category, service providers do not offer RFPs for estimates. They do not give estimates. So I had to go to municipalities on the Cape and one off Cape, and so I've kind of built a composite. And the composite has to do with comparative size and population and land mass. And so those are kind of external variables. I don't know if there are variables like what are the file format in the assessor's office that are used to generate some of the statistics that are required. So what we're looking at is, in my conversations, I was delighted to hear that our local comprehensive plan, which plenty of people are aware of, is a fantastic foundation for this process, and it gets us to one of the three components that we have to look at, one of which is developing a roadmap from the plan into something that's actionable, which is the code. That's the second component. And the third component, which I was delighted to hear about, is that there are grants available for exactly this kind of process from the Executive Office of Employee Affairs, Executive Office of Energy and Employee Affairs, Planning Assistant Grants. And so those are the three pieces, kind of three components that are in action here. And the three local examples that I was able to get the most granular detail was from Orleans, Hyannis, and Littleton. So Littleton is about half the square footage, square mileage of the town of Harwich, and about 3/4 of the population. Their roadmap component cost them $90,000. Their form-based code development was $40,000, and their planning grant was $50,000. So it was a very good kind of a net of $40,000 project. The Hyannis project was done by a woman who is known to this planning department pretty well. Hyannis, of course, is much smaller. It's like 1/3 of our surface area, but they have a higher density of population. And that's a village and a town that has 4 times our population, and I think it's 10 zip codes. So it's a little bit of apples and oranges, right? But their roadmap and form-based code was $150,000. So we go from 80 to 150. Now, Orleans is kind of not the one in the middle, but they have a little bit less square mileage, about half our population, and theirs was $100,000. And the woman that did the Orleans project had got the experience from doing Hyannis, and so she said she can work with Harwich to help thread the needle on speed. So my estimate on a worst-case scenario would have been 125, with us getting 50 from the Community for One-Stop Growth, 50,000 grant for development, which I think is a no-brainer. I've also been told that it opened 7 days ago, and that a statement or expression of interest we ought to get on the record ASAP, because full grant rounds open in June. So we could offset some of the costs that we would want to have. And we're, I wouldn't say we're a lead pipe cinch, but this is exactly what it exists for. And we're doing what they want us to do. And then there's also a second grant available for us if we secure a Housing Choice Initiative designation, which gives us preferential treatment for all other development and zoning initiatives in the town of Harwich. So this would also be something that's worth getting an expression of interest on the boards ASAP.
What was that called, Duncan, again?
Housing Choice Initiative. That's a designation that you get from EOEEA.
Every couple of years it changes.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I have. My advice is to put in 125, and we can work to getting a minimum of 50 to offset it. So that's roughly.
What would you need as an expression of support then, that we vote to include the article in a certain amount of money and use that to leverage for the grant?
I would think that would be enormously helpful.
So what's the amount, Duncan, that you're looking for?
125 is what again, this is like a spitballing.
Yeah, and it could be offset by grants. So for something that size, right, so that fits in the planning, in the infrastructure categories. Planning is one of the categories. So I would, again, like we just previously did, if the board is inclined, is to insert this planning project into the capital plan at
That's
100.
what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, at
so that- So that it sits
125,000.
there and he can leverage it.
Yeah, and again, our plan, I think, based on what Jen's been able to find, we would be able to handle the 175 for Harbor and the 125 for this, in terms of the repurpose, prior approved capital articles that aren't needed anymore.
Okay, I think we could be 10 o'clock. So somebody want to make a motion to include it in the capital plan?
This is just to include the article, the the
We
item in
always
the
have a
capital
problem
plan.
with doing something else and pulling it somehow, but he needs to have. us
No,
on
understood,
record.
but I know Duncan was talking about, and I'm sorry, I forget the name already too, but the housing.
Housing Choice Initiative.
Yeah, I just want more on that, but we have time for that, is what I'm hearing. So I'll put forward a positive motion to put the $125,000 request in the capital plan.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. The only thing I'm going to say is, because I haven't annoyed everybody yet tonight, looking at the planning board, I'm also the liaison to that, I don't know what gave them the thought that they could goaltend this, but just for the record, something as profound as the overall structure of our zoning bylaws is not gate kept at the planning board level.
Right.
It's a policy thought that resides in the select board, and if we want to look at that stuff, we are going to look at that stuff.
Right.
So having said that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous.
May I make one more other statement?
Yep, sure.
And that is that one of the things we talked about also is economic research. I only heard back from the research group today. It's wildly complex. It gave me like the full, like a sushi menu, like 60 things like that you can check off. This is downstream, but it's definitely also worth considering again. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time. And the
Thank you,
town.
Duncan.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, don't sell yourself short. You probably pissed everybody off tonight.
I was hoping to.
Twice.
Thank you for that. So I took the title from you, by the way. Do we want to go through all those other contracts, or can we defer them until next Monday?
What's that?
Just ask.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
before we get to that, though, we need to talk about the budget.
Oh, you want
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking, but can we shear these other things off so we could just talk about the budget and then move on?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions on the contracts. If you just do a motion, I think they're,
All right, talk about the budget.
all right. It's up to we'll do whatever you, Mr. Chair, whatever you want to do. But, so the operating budget, I don't know if anybody has any questions before the board considers, passing the budget and the capital plan over to the finance committee. Obviously, what we would do before we do that, within Munis, Jen will take, the town administrator's recommended column, and it will shift over to the select board column. We know there's gonna be, additional changes within the budget in the coming weeks, related to health insurance, related to the school budget, obviously. The tech school's coming in on the 23rd. So, again, even though you're transferring it to the finance committee, we know there's gonna be additional conversations and changes to the budget, over the coming weeks and, a little bit over a month before it's finalized. So, it just gives the finance committee an opportunity to start their, review of it.
Which I might add, we're not only way ahead of time, but this isn't the final budget anyway, because there are still imponderables, like really are the revenues going to come to fruition that we're projecting? So it isn't like we're voting tonight for the final budget to go into the
Correct.
warrant. We are pushing it forward to allow the people who have always had the right to parse over it the actual ample time, so they don't get it marched to say, yeah, it's good with us because we can't change it.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Motion to provide the budget to the finance committee pursuant to the Howard Town Charter
In capital plan.
and capital plan. Thank you.
Second.
So moved and seconded to advance both the budget and the capital plan to the finance committee for their review and hearings. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's vote. You want to go on a roll here? We do the contracts. Pete, do you mind if we fold in the 3 contracts for the Cranberry Valley, or?
It's one contract.
Okay, good. So that was a motion?
Oh, yeah, motion. Motion to approve a contract with Five Star Golf cars and utility vehicles for lease, to lease 80 golf carts to the Cranberry Valley Golf Course by the following terms. January 1, 26 to December 31, 26, revenue share 60/40. January 1, 27 to December 31, 27, revenue share 65/35. January 1, 2028 to December 31, 28, 70/30 on the revenue share. And the 70 is, well, the higher amount on each of them is to the town, the lesser amount to the company.
Second.
So moved and seconded, and I'm not going to repeat the motion. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize the chair to sign a contract with the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, MHP, to assist the Board of Appeals during the 456 Queen Anne Rose Penrose project application process. Funds up to $10,000 have been awarded to the town under the 40B Technical Grant Program.
Second.
And I will note that the prior administration's penchant for identifying things by street numbers confuses an awful lot of people. This is not the 732, and the community center is not the 100. So given that it's also known as...
Penrose. I don't know. I wasn't even paying attention to what you were saying.
The Marshline property.
I was so
It was the
not
Marshline property because giving it an address backs your way into an entrance and an exit on that road.
Oh, correct.
So,
Thank you.
otherwise known as. All right, so it's been moved and seconded to sign, have the chair sign the contract for the Mass Housing Partnership. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's a vote. Town Administrator's report. You could give a closure report if you stay here much longer.
If I give a what?
A closeout report if you stay here much longer.
No, it's been a pleasure and an honor.
Not as much of an honor as it has been for us, buddy.
You're in good hands.
We owe you a debt of gratitude. All right. Select Board report?
So just along those lines, I just want to thank Mr. Schiavi, as he was kind enough to teach me how to say his name the first day we met. And it's been a pleasure. You've done a tremendous job for the town of Harwich during your 6 months sentence. But no, in all seriousness, we are grateful, the town is grateful, and we are in better shape because of you, so thank you.
Team effort.
Agreed.
Second that.
Anita,
Thank you so much,
Selectman
Tony.
report. Mark?
Just one thing, Jeff is part of this too. There's a group of Lower Cape towns talking about shared services. And two of the things that came up that they're looking to try and share services on is building commissioners, building inspections, and fire inspectors. So if we have any,
I got mine.
what's that?
I got mine.
If we have any, free space, there's other towns that would be willing to hire some of our guys, and vice versa, so that's it.
Just a bunch of things. Tony, you left
Wanna
it.
stay for
You're
those?
leaving it better than you found it. My dad always said, try to accomplish that. You certainly did it in spades. Thank you for everything you did and have done, and probably will continue to do for a little while. And then, Mr. Chair, if I may request an agenda item for next week. I want to recognize Jen Clark and Natasha Lyon, and I would like to just make it very clear they've gone above and beyond for months and months and months. And I would like to have an agenda item to discuss a one-time stipend, to say thank you for their efforts next week.
I was going to talk about revenue sharing, but that sounds okay.
Zero-based balanced budgets,
Yeah.
yeah, revenue share, great. I know, in all seriousness, Jen, you've done a heck of a job, and Natasha's exactly right there with you. Couldn't do it without the two of you. So I'd like that to be an agenda item for next week. If you can.
Sure, and we're absolutely going to be leaning on them in the future because they're the glue that keeps all of this run going, so.
Thank you.
I have nothing to report other than my profound gratitude for pulling the culture of this town completely into a different direction, and it was everything we could have asked for. So thank you again. Motion to adjourn, anyone?
Yes.
Second.
So moved.
How many times have I done this?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm working tomorrow, right?
Pete opposed? Are you opposed?
Never opposed
Okay.
adjourning. I was ready at 8
At least Jen
o'clock.
doesn't have the agenda.